Chapter 542. Thunder King Valley was not private territory. No one had the right to stop others from comprehending it and monopolize it for themselves. In the continent, martial monarchs were the peak combat prowess. No matter where they went, they would be respected by tens of thousands of people. However, there were too few martial monarchs. The Great Qin nation had a population of more than 100 million. Even if all the martial monarchs were added together, there would not be more than 50. Some powers wanted to find guest elders but could not find martial monarchs. They could only settle for the next best thing, finding half-step martial monarchs. Before the age of geniuses, half-step martial monarchs were the peak combat prowess of a nation when martial monarchs did not appear. Half-step martial monarchs enjoyed an extremely noble and glorious status. They would be treated with respect wherever they went. This was how the old men in Thunder King Valley lived. Hence, when they saw Xiao Qian, they immediately put on the airs of a senior and told him to wait for half a year. They did not know that the times had changed. In this age of geniuses, half-step martial monarchs were nothing. The strongest half-step martial monarch, the Bloody Bladesman's son Guangquan, could see very clearly. He knew that this was an age of geniuses. Only by continuously strengthening oneself could one not be eliminated by the times. Living in the glory of the past would only make one a stepping stone for geniuses. The boundless will of thunder in the sky had not appeared yet. Xiao Qian found a place and sat down cross-legged. Then, he closed his eyes and started comprehending. The lightning-attributed spiritual energy here was very active. Occasionally, one could see electricity leaping about in the air. It was hard to imagine that a bolt of thunder from thousands of years ago could remain here until now, its sharpness not diminishing. The Thunder King was the strongest Emperor Wu of the previous age. As for how strong he was, the current Xiao Qian did not dare to guess. The higher one's cultivation realm, the greater the reverence in one's heart. In the past, Xiao Qian did not understand. He thought that the Thunder King's strength was at most capable of splitting mountains and overturning rivers and seas. However, now that he could split mountains and overturn rivers and seas, Xiao Qian could barely do that. How could the Thunder King be so strong? Only by reaching that realm would one be able to feel the scenery above the peak. In this Thunder King Valley, Xiao Qian's martial arts heart had unknowingly become firmer. Up, up, with dreams in his heart, he kept going up. One day, the world would give birth to a Thunder King Valley for him, Xiao Qian. His brilliance and his will would be the same as the Thunder King's. Even if 10,000 years passed, it would not be worn down by time, and its sharpness would never be extinguished. 4 hours later, thunder roared. Xiao Qian, who had his eyes closed, opened them and muttered, "It's coming." Amidst the rolling dark clouds in the sky, a golden bolt of lightning was hidden within, floating around continuously. The entire peak was dyed with a solemn atmosphere, causing people to not even dare to breathe loudly. The pressure in their hearts suddenly shook, as if there was a mountain pressing down on their chests. Occasionally, a golden light would pierce through the dark clouds. Suddenly, a malevolent golden bolt of lightning was formed between the heavens and the earth, splitting the void in half. Wang! Wang! The lunar shadow saber by Xiao Qian's hand trembled continuously, as if it would be drawn at any moment. It was clearly very excited. The vast golden will of thunder in the dark clouds stopped above Xiao Qian's head, circling around continuously. When Xiao Qian felt the energy in the lightning, he thought to himself, "What a strong will of thunder." There is only a difference of one word between a state and a will, but the aura they bring is completely different. It looks like this will of thunder knows who I am and is trying to help me. If others wanted to comprehend it, they would only have a chance to do so in the instant the lightning flashed. However, it stopped above my head, allowing me to feel its might at all times. Xiao Qian closed his eyes again. This time, he did not have any other thoughts. He sank his consciousness into it and slowly unleashed the state of thunder. Time passed slowly. Under the guidance of the will of thunder, Xiao Qian's understanding of thunder deepened. At some point in time, Xiao Qian's body gave off beams of purple light. These purple lights were all flickering electricity. Xiaochen entered an extremely wondrous state. His entire consciousness seemed to be in a world of lightning. Some strange and wondrous thoughts flowed out like a river. This allowed Xiaochen's understanding of thunder to reach an unprecedented height. The purple lightning drifting around him crackled continuously. 3 days later, Xiaochen opened his eyes again. Electricity flickered in the depths of his eyes, making them look very spirited. When Xiaochen looked up, he saw that the will of thunder in the sky had already hidden away, returning to an unknown place. Xiaochen stood up. With a thought, he casually waved his hand, and a malevolent bolt of lightning flew out from his palm, illuminating the sky with resplendent light. Just as the electric light was about to disappear, Xiaochen waved his right hand, and that bolt of lightning strangely returned to Xiaochen's palm. I can withdraw it as I please. I have already comprehended the state of thunder to its limits. I am just one step shy of becoming the will of thunder. However, that is something for me to consider after I advance to martial monarch. There is no need to think about it for now. Xiaochen sighed softly. In such a short period of time, I have already gained so much. No wonder even a martial sage had designs on this will of thunder. Not to mention how useful it is to me, just by placing it in the sect, it would be able to create several experts with the state of thunder. Since this matter is over, it is time to return to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. With my current strength, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion should not stop me from entering. During the battle at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Xiaochen had killed the Biyun Peak's Peak Master, Song Quebec. According to the sect rules, no matter the reason, if a disciple killed a Peak Master, he had to die. The first elder, Jiang Qi, spared Xiaochen's life. However, he made Xiaochen swear never to step into the Heavenly Saber Pavilion again. Xiaochen was very grateful to this first elder. Back at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, if he had not suppressed those noble clan elders, he would have died long ago. Although the first elder chased Xiaochen out of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, in reality, he was still helping Xiaochen. Xiaochen leaped into the air and landed on the Black Dragon River in the middle of the gorge. If he followed the Black Dragon River and leaped over the fork to the ancient desolate land, he would enter the territory of the great Qin nation. Hey! Just as Xiaochen landed on the river, he heard a soft exclamation. When he turned his head to take a look, his lips could not help but curl up into a smile. Shi Feng, wearing black leather armor and a mask that covered half her face, actually appeared in the gorge. Shi Feng raised her eyebrows slightly and smiled. Brother with a bad sense of direction, are you not afraid of falling to your death after jumping from such a high place? Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, sorry to disappoint you. Even if I were twice as high, I would not die. Have you not taken off your mask yet? It looks like you did not succeed in your experiential training this time. Shi Feng said unhappily, it is none of your business. Xiaochen thought for a while and took out a wooden box from the universe ring. Then, he tossed it to Shi Feng and said, bring this item to your adoptive father. Tell him it is a gift from an old friend. What is this? Xiaochen said calmly, to you and me, it is just a pile of scrap metal. Shi Feng caught the wooden shavings in her hand and looked suspiciously at Xiaochen. She said, why do I have to help you bring it over? Ka xie. Right after Shi Feng spoke, Xiaochen drew his lunar shadow saber at lightning speed. A sharp saber light flashed. The mask on her face was split in half. With a clang sound, it landed on the surface of the river, revealing a beautiful face. Xiaochen smiled gently and said, there is no need to thank me. Just take it as a thank you gift for helping me deliver this. By the way, you are very beautiful. There is really no need to wear a mask all day. Fighting and killing is a matter for boys. Don't listen to your bastard adoptive father's words about controlling one's expression when fighting. As Shi Feng watched Xiaochen leave, she stood on the water in a daze. She did not recover her wits for a long time. The mask that had followed her for more than 10 years was actually taken off by someone just like that. The expression in Shi Feng's eyes slowly calmed down from the initial rage. She lowered her head and looked at her face in the water. Then, she said softly, "You egomaniac. What do you mean by fighting is a matter for boys in the end? Sooner or later, I will defeat you." In the Shiha province of the Great Qin nation, at the foot of the Lianyan mountain range, the famous Saber City was bustling with people as usual. The cultivators that passed by either carried large sabers on their backs or had sabers hanging from their waists. All of them had solemn expressions as they arrived at this holy land for bladesmen. In front of the city gate, a white-clothed youth with a slender saber at his waist stood straight at the foot of the city gate. His handsome and delicate face revealed a somewhat melancholic expression. 2 years, 2 years. I, Xiao Chen, have returned to this place. Originally, it would take 2 months to travel from Thunder King Valley to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. However, with Xiao Chen rushing non-stop, he managed to shorten the time by more than half. He arrived in half a month. As he rushed, the closer he got, the more nervous Xiao Chen felt. For the past 2 years, he had buried his feelings for his lover in his heart. He did not think about it or ask about it. However, because he was not strong enough, he could not return to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. If he kept thinking about it, he would only feel bitterness and nothing else. If he wanted to meet her quickly, he would not think about anything else. He could only bury his feelings in his heart and not tell anyone. He would taste the bitterness and loneliness. When he reached the peak in the future, he would fulfill his promise. However, now that he was nearing Saber City, the feelings that he suppressed in his heart could not help but leak out. Is she doing well? How is she now? How are her injuries? Will she blame me for not even writing a letter to her? Did she still remember that once upon a time, there was a young and inexperienced youth who shouted those rather funny words from the top of the mountain? Will she still remember the promise that white-robed youth made? Xiao Chen smiled in disappointment and frustration. He shook his head slightly and collected his thoughts. After he paid the entrance tax, he slowly walked into the city. The white-robed bladesman's influence is really great. Unexpectedly, there are still people imitating his attire. That's normal. Think about what he did in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. He defeated the experts of the Holy Lands alone. Then, he defeated the geniuses of the noble clans of the Great Qin nation. Our Heavenly Saber Pavilion has not had such a genius in the past few thousand years. Unfortunately, that bastard Song Ke is too wicked. He caused our Heavenly Saber Pavilion to lose such a genius for nothing. Yeah, that bastard deserved to be killed. He deserved to be punched in the head. It's not an injustice at all. The cultivators guarding the city whispered behind him. Xiao Chen's 6 senses were very sharp, he could hear everything clearly. He could not help but reveal a faint smile. Chapter 543. Xiao Chen casually glanced around the city. There were many white-robed cultivators with slender sabers hanging at their waists. Saber City was only the outer sect of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. It was very difficult to enter the inner sect. Without a medallion, with Xiao Chen's current strength, he would not be able to force his way in. However, Xiao Chen had his own methods. He did not go to the inner sect directly. He had come to Saber City for this plan. His plan was simple. He would just steal an inner disciple's token. Even though it was shameful, he could only apologize to the junior brother and junior sister whose identity was stolen. Xiao Chen stayed in the city for half a day and quickly locked onto his target. It was a lone female disciple. He was only in his 20s, and his appearance was delicate and pretty. His hair was tied into a ponytail, and he looked very lively. He held a small saber in his left hand and a bronze token hung from his waist. After following her to a deserted street, Xiao Chen walked up to her and said with a smile, "Hello, junior sister." The ponytailed girl looked at the white-robed, handsome Xiao Chen and was slightly stunned. Sensing his unfathomable strength, she quickly bowed and greeted, "Greetings, senior brother." He was secretly shocked. Which peak senior brother was this? He was so strong. He was so young, but he was much stronger than master. The rules of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion were very strict. When junior brothers and junior sisters saw their senior brothers, they had to treat them respectfully. Xiaochen found it funny. It seemed that this little girl really thought of him as her senior brother. Taking advantage of the moment when the other party lowered her head, he moved his hand slightly and hooked the other party's token over. "Senior brother, why are you looking for me?" the ponytail girl asked nervously. Xiaochen put the token into his sleeve and said with a smile, "It's nothing. Senior brother mistook me for someone else. I'll take my leave first." Watching Xiaochen leave, the ponytailed girl was puzzled, not knowing what had happened. Out of habit, he touched his waist and was shocked to find that the token was gone. "Don't leave." The ponytailed girl unsheathed the small saber in her hand at lightning speed. She shouted angrily and swung the saber as if it was her hand. As it spun rapidly, the blade seemed to cut the air in half, bringing with it a whistling sound of air currents. Mysterious wind cut. Xiaochen turned around and smiled. "But you're still lacking. Little junior sister, you have to work harder." Xiaochen stretched out his hand and touched the saber's edge with his fingertip. Surging essence burst forth from his fingertip. Bang! Under Xiaochen's command, the spinning saber turned back at an even faster speed. Before the ponytailed girl could react, the blade was inserted back into the scabbard in her left hand. How could this be? The girl's delicate face was filled with astonishment. One of the 9 secrets of Qingyun, the profound wind chop, was actually broken just like that. After a while, he remembered that he had lost his token. With a sullen face, he said, "This senior brother is such a bully. He lost his token and stole mine. What should I do? What should I do?" To be able to recognize the mysterious wind chop at a glance and break it easily without injuring her. In the girl's opinion, the other party must be one of the genius disciples of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Due to his carelessness, he lost his token and could not enter the mountain. Hence, he snatched her token. Xiaochen, who was far away, flipped the token over and took a look. It was as he expected. The words Qingyun were written on the top and Ling Qianqian were written on the front. The words were written in a leisurely manner. Damn, I have embarrassed myself this time. It really is a junior sister's token. Don't blame your senior brother. Qianqian, right? I will return it to you later. After hanging the token at his waist, Xiaochen arrived at the foot of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Then, he followed the crowd and entered. The disciple guarding the entrance only took a quick glance and did not look closely. There were so many people passing by every day. It was impossible for him to check every single one of them carefully. He could only rely on his experience. When he saw something wrong with their expressions, he would call them down and check them carefully. Xiaochen had been a Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciple for a long time. How could he reveal any flaws? On the familiar road, there were green mountains, pavilions, small paths, and cultivators practicing the saber. There were no major changes to the past. Before Xiaochen entered the city, he was feeling impatient. However, when he stepped onto the land of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, he calmed down. Xiaochen took a step into the air and looked at the towering Qingyun peak in the sky. He took a deep breath and slowly walked over. Qingyun Peak, Xiaochen, have returned. Elder sister Ryue, Suifeng, Xiaoyang, Xiaomeng, are you all doing well? The Qingyun Peak disciples passed by Xiaochen one by one. Several of the older generation disciples felt that Xiaochen looked familiar and stopped to take a closer look. They had some guesses in their hearts. However, in the past 2 years, although Xiaochen's appearance did not change much, his aura had undergone an earth-shattering change. The youthful and immature look on his face was gone. His face now had an air of vicissitudes and maturity. It was very different from before. The most important thing was that in the past, Xiaochen had disguised himself as Yi Chen when he came to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. He only revealed himself in the final battle. Although these people had their guesses, they felt that it could not be Xiaochen. Furthermore, that person swore that he would never step into the heavenly saber pavilion again. After taking a few glances, they withdrew their gazes and smiled self-mockingly. I am too suspicious. There are so many bladesmen wearing white robes. Could they all be Xiao Chen? Being careful and hiding would only make others more suspicious. Xiao Chen had a calm expression as he confidently walked forward. Xiao Chen walked forward calmly. Just as he was about 7 minutes away from Qingyun Peak, a group of people wearing the uniform of Biyun Peak disciples suddenly appeared. Xiao Chen glanced at the appearance of the leader of the group and quickly lowered his head, preparing to keep a low profile. The leader of the group was Song Kei's son, Song Qianhe. He was the current peak master of Biyun Peak. At this moment, he was leading the Biyun Peak disciples, chatting and laughing as they prepared to leave the mountain. When Song Kei passed by Xiao Chen, he did not pay much attention to him. However, when his gaze landed on Xiao Chen's face, his expression could not help but change greatly. He had a grudge against Xiao Chen for killing his father. For the past few years, that face would appear in his mind every day and night. Now that he saw Xiao Chen in person, he was shocked. Stop right there. Which peak's disciple are you from? State your name, Song Qianhe shouted at Xiao Chen in an intense tone. Was I discovered? Xiao Chen revealed a bitter smile and turned around helplessly. He was not afraid of this person. However, he had just arrived at Qingyun Peak and did not want to cause any trouble. Song Qianhe, it's been a long time, Xiao Chen said calmly with an indifferent gaze. It's really him. Song Qianhe's expression turned sullen. He clenched his teeth and said, Xiao Chen, you actually dared to appear. Back then, you swore that you would not take half a step into the heavenly saber pavilion. Now that you have broken your oath, let's see how you are going to answer to the elders' assembly. The 10-odd Biyun Peak disciples behind Song Qianhe looked at Xiao Chen. They were all astonished. Is this the person in front of us, the white-robed bladesman that caused such a commotion? Xiao Chen chuckled and said, Sorry, you saw wrong. I did not break my oath. I did not step into the heavenly saber pavilion. Song Qianhe looked carefully and saw that Xiao Chen's feet were hovering half an inch above the ground. With his long robes covering him, it looked like he was really stepping on the ground. However, in the end, he did not step on the ground. You! Song Qianhe pointed angrily at Xiao Chen. He was so angry that his face turned red. Song Qianhe drew his weapon with his right hand and said sternly, I don't care if you broke your oath or not. Since you came to the heavenly saber pavilion today, you can forget about leaving. Xiao Chen's expression sank. He placed his right hand on the saber hilt and emitted a cold killing chi. He said in a frosty voice, Try taking another step forward. The killing chi seemed solid, it was bone-chilling. Song Qianhe could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. He stopped moving, he could not explain the reason why. The scene of Xiao Chen shattering his father's head with one punch in the heavenly saber pavilion replayed in Song Qianhe's dreams. There was not a moment when he did not want to kill Xiao Chen. For the sake of revenge, Song Qianhe disregarded everything and frantically cultivated for the past 2 years. He became the second cultivator in the heavenly saber pavilion to become a martial king before the age of 20, after Lu Riyue. Song Qianhe naturally became the peak master of Biyun Peak, leading the disciples of the peak. He was very spirited. Originally, Song Qianhe thought that after he broke through to peak inferior grade martial king, he would be able to easily defeat Xiao Chen. However, when Song Qianhe saw Xiao Chen again today, he did not expect that one look from Xiao Chen would cause him to freeze in place. Song Qianhe carefully sent out his aura. He was not confident in himself, so he wanted to check out Xiao Chen's cultivation. In the end, when he checked, he discovered that he could not see through Xiao Chen's cultivation, it was unfathomable. He is not a medial grade martial king. He is stronger than a regular superior grade martial king. Could this fellow be a peak superior grade martial king? Song Qianhe was somewhat frightened by his own thoughts. A peak superior grade martial king in the heavenly saber pavilion was comparable to several of the elders' assembly's elders. However, a peak superior grade martial king was fine. Song Qianhe could delay him for now. When the elders of Biyun Peak arrived, they could deal with him. Biyun Peak disciples, listen up. This person is a traitor of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Kill him for me. After this matter is over, everyone will be rewarded with 5,000 inferior grade spirit stones. After Song Qianhe made up his mind, he casually sent out a jade green signal. Then, he used his status as the peak master to give out orders. Huang Dang. Huang Dang. Song Qianhe gave out orders. The disciples behind him were all Biyun Peak's people, they were under his command. Furthermore, Shaochen had indeed done some rebellious things. Furthermore, there was a large reward of spirit stones. These disciples immediately drew their weapons and pointed them at Shaochen. Kill! Song Qianhe shouted and took the lead to charge. He was not stupid, he did not let hatred get to his head. He knew that he was not strong enough, so he did not try to be brave. He could only use these people to delay Shaochen first before looking for an opportunity. After all, it would be very difficult to get rid of a peak superior grade martial king. Unfortunately, there were some things and some people that, no matter how much one calculated, one did not have absolute strength. The so-called wisdom and schemes were just a joke. Song Qianhe was very unfortunate. At this moment, he had encountered this matter, and he had encountered this person. Ignorant. Shaochen, who was as straight as a pine tree, snorted coldly. His right hand, which was on the saber hilt, gently moved forward and drew his saber by 1 centimeter. A boundless purple light came from the saber. Contained within the light was Shaochen's inextinguishable sharp saber intent. Wang! 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 A sharp saber intent spread out. The weapons in the hands of the many Biyun Peak disciples trembled continuously. Even Song Qianhe was no exception. Chapter 544. The originally ferocious group of people all stopped. They had astonished expressions on their faces as they desperately held on to the weapons in their hands. Half a move, Shaochen only used half a move. This group of Biyun Peak disciples, who were originally very confident and were thinking of a great reward, were forced into a corner. They could only resist the saber intent in a sorry state. Shaochen was a bona fide half-step martial monarch, someone close to being unrivaled. Honestly speaking, he was already thinking highly of them by using half a move against this group of people, the strongest of which was an inferior grade martial king. It was only because they were all from the same sect and cultivators who used the saber that Shaochen respected them. Otherwise, he would not even need to draw his saber. Xiao. Shaochen moved his hand forward again and drew the long, black, and sleek lunar shadow saber. It gave off a dazzling purple light and a boundless saber intent spread out wantonly. So. The entire group of people could no longer hold on to their weapons. Their long sabers soared into the sky and started to spin around non-stop. Saber intent. This is saber intent. The Biyun Peak disciples were all horrified. Their voices trembled as they retreated with all their might. Shaochen had a calm expression as he pointed his saber at Song Qianhe, who was trying to flee. An overwhelming killing intent surged out from his eyes, and the air immediately froze. The killing intent chilled Song Qianhe's heart to the bone. Shaochen's peak state of massacre locked onto him. He felt like his legs were filled with lead, they weighed 500 kilograms, he found it hard to move. Bang! That killing intent poured into his heart and spread throughout his entire body. Song Qianhe felt an incredible pain in his chest. His legs trembled, and his eyes filled with horror. Song Qianhe could no longer hold on and knelt on the ground. Song Qianhe did his best to resist the pressure in his mind. He used one hand to support himself, doing his best not to fall to the ground. As he looked at Shaochen, his eyes filled with hatred. He clenched his teeth and said, "Shaochen, don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you are a peak superior grade martial king. After you enter the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, you will die for sure. Superior Grade Martial King. I haven't been one for a long time. Shao Qin said calmly. A surging crystalline saber chi shot out of his saber. Song Qianhe, who was kneeling on the ground, immediately had a horrifying wound cut open on his chest by the saber chi. The wound was 3 inches deep and blood gushed out like a fountain. His internal organs were clearly visible. Song Qianhe was sent flying. His expression was one of extreme pain. This was one of the main roads of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. If the disciples of the various peaks wanted to leave the mountain, they had to pass through this road. There would be a lot of people passing through it day and night. The fight between Shao Chen and Song Qianhe had long since attracted the attention of many passing disciples. Several of them were suspicious of Shao Chen's identity. When they heard Song Qianhe's words, they finally confirmed Shao Chen's identity. Numerous astonished gazes shot towards Shao Chen, their hearts trembling. Fuck, it's really him. I haven't seen him for 2 years, and he's several times stronger than before. I suspected it was him long ago. The white-robed bladesman Shao Chen killed a peak master of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Unexpectedly, he still dares to walk in so casually. He actually comprehended saber intent. In our Heavenly Saber Pavilion, no one has comprehended saber intent in the past 1,000 years. Without saber intent, one is an incomplete bladesman. I wonder if this Song Qianhe is lucky or unlucky. The moment Shao Chen arrived, he ran into him. The surrounding cultivators discussed. The legendary battle between the white-robed bladesman on the Heaven Ascending platform 2 years ago was still fresh in their minds. At that time, there might have been people who doubted Shao Chen's strength in the future. However, after seeing Shao Chen's current performance, no one would deny it. That was the beginning of a legend, the epic legend of the white-robed bladesman. Shao Chen sheathed his saber and ignored the severely injured Song Qianhe behind him. He faced the astonished gasps of the crowd calmly, neither arrogant nor impatient. Shao Chen, you killed my father and humiliated me time and time again. Sooner or later, Song Qianhe will make you suffer a fate worse than death. When Song Qianhe, who was on the ground, saw that Shao Chen did not care about him at all, treating him like an ant, he felt humiliated in his heart. Rage. Shao Chen's calm expression sank completely. Who was it that sought trouble with him time and time again, trying to kill him? Who was it that coveted Qingyun Peak's businesses in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion? Who was it that, as a martial king, bullied him, an insignificant martial grand master? Who was it that, while he was far away, hired assassins to deal with him? Who was it that, when he was in danger, hit him when he was down? Who was it that, in front of everyone, did not care about propriety and honor, sneak attacking him, nearly causing Ryue to die? It was Song Ke, Song Qianhe's father. That kind of scum, even if he died 1,000 times, it would not be enough. However, when the words reached Song Qianhe's mouth, they turned into Shao Chen being unreasonable. Shao Chen was bullying him, twisting words and forcing logic, extremely shameless. How could there be such logic in the world? How could he distort the truth and speak nonsense? Bang! Shao Chen's figure flashed and he kicked Song Qianhe's chest, sending him flying into the air. After that, he landed heavily on the ground. Don't mention that trashy father of yours in front of me. Don't think that I do not dare to kill you. Back then, I dared to kill your father in front of everyone. Today, I dare to kill you as well. Shao Chen stomped on Song Qianhe's body expressionlessly. His voice was bone-chilling. The severely injured Song Qianhe trembled in fear, not daring to say another word. Xiao! 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 Just at this moment, 5 Biyun Peak seniors saw Song Qianhe's signal and flew over from afar. Hope immediately lit up in the despairing Song Qianhe's eyes. The people he was waiting for had finally arrived. Oh no, the 5 elders of Biyun Peak are here. These 5 people were superior grade martial kings many years ago. This is bad for Shao Chen. This Song Qianhe father and son are really sinful. They forced away our heavenly saber pavilion's genius. Now, they are here to kill him. Indeed, if he can represent the heavenly saber pavilion in the 5-nation youth competition and obtain a good ranking, we will be able to bask in his glory. With Xiao Chen's current strength, entering the top 50 will not be a problem. At that time, the heavenly saber pavilion will obtain luck. Our luck will increase as well. Unfortunately, that bastard Song Ke sent our genius to his grave. What a bastard. This father and son are both not good people. The young cultivators present all felt that it was a pity. It had to be known that the heavenly saber pavilion had not produced a genius like Xiao Chen for a long time already. Back then, Murong Chong was very powerful. However, his reputation was far from comparable to Xiao Chen's. Back then, during the battle at the heaven ascending platform, Xiao Chen had become famous. He had soared to the sky in one go. Even the young disciples of the heavenly saber pavilion had basked in Xiao Chen's glory. When they went out for experiential training, people would often ask about it. Regardless of whether they were from the same sect as Xiao Chen, when they received an affirmative answer, they would receive envious gazes. The heavenly saber pavilion had been weak for many years. It had always been suppressed by the Misty Sword sect and the Night Spirit Palace. As a disciple of the heavenly saber pavilion, they had never received such treatment before. Among the younger generation of disciples, they all worshipped and respected Xiao Chen. They did not have any good impressions of the Song Qianhe father and son. Who did not dream of being a hero when they were young? Who did not want to become a legend, to be respected by thousands? However, reality was too cruel. As they grew older, they would dismiss such dreams with a smile. However, one day, they suddenly discovered such a heroic deed, such a legend, was right beside them. How could their blood not boil? When they saw that Xiao Chen was in trouble, all of them became anxious. In contrast to them, Song Qianhe, who was under Xiao Chen's feet, had an extremely happy smile on his face. His smile was incomparably carefree, it was a smile that was as carefree as it could be, a smile that was as carefree as it could be. This was because Song Qianhe knew that he would soon trample on this white-robed bladesman, who had stepped on his chest. Then, he would be able to take revenge for the humiliation and grudge he suffered in the past. 5 old men wearing Biyun Peak's uniform stood in the air. When they saw Biyun Peak's unique peak master asking for help, they rushed over immediately. Unexpectedly, he was still a step too late. When he saw the situation, he immediately understood what was going on. Uncles, he is Xiao Chen. He is the one who killed my father. He is only a peak superior grade martial king. You have to take revenge for me. Song Qianhe shouted, ignoring the fact that Xiao Chen was stepping on him. The 5 old men were already over 80 years old. They had a lot of life experience. They took a quick glance at Xiao Chen and started cursing in their hearts. Song Qianhe did not know what cultivation realm Xiao Chen was in. However, they knew with one glance. How was this a peak superior grade martial king? He was clearly a half-step martial monarch. Furthermore, his aura was strong and drawn out. He was not a half-step martial monarch that cultivated a trash cultivation technique. Song Qianhe, this little bastard, wanting them to go was simply sending them to their deaths. Although the difference between a peak superior grade martial king and a half-step martial monarch was not as great as between a martial king and a martial monarch, it was still a huge difference. The 5 old men were very old. After living for so long, they were all very astute. They knew that the 5 of them working together would not be able to hold back Xiao Chen. Furthermore, they would offend a genius cultivator with a bright future. They did not say anything. They exchanged glances and flew away, returning to where they came from. Why did the 5 martial kings leave just like that? How strange. Could they have been scared off? The many disciples who were worried for Xiao Chen all felt suspicious. Song Qianhe's mouth was wide open. His mouth was so wide that he could easily fit an egg in it. The carefree smile on his face did not even have time to fade. Why did they leave without saying anything? These uncles are the ones who dote on me the most. How could it be like this? How could it be like this? The difference was too great. Song Qianhe felt dizzy. It was like his brain had short-circuited in that instant. Falling from the peak to the bottom of the valley was not the most miserable feeling. The most miserable feeling was when one fell to the bottom and thought that one had a chance to turn things around. Who knew, one would fall back down. At this moment, Song Qianhe finally experienced this feeling. Furthermore, he was severely injured. His final hope was shattered. He could not catch his breath and fainted. Xiao Chen was not surprised at the actions of the 5B peak old men. They clearly knew that they could not defeat him, yet they still insisted on fighting. There would not be such stupid people in this world. If the 5 old men were half-step martial monarchs, with the resources of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion and their experience, they might have a 50% chance of defeating him. Unfortunately, they were not. They were only superior-grade martial kings. In that case, they would not stand a chance at all. Chapter 545. Casually kicking Song Qianhe aside, Xiao Chen raised his head and looked at the clouds above. There were a few strong gazes staring at him from within the clouds. However, they did not have any malicious intent. They also did not intend to stop Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen felt excited. He knew who was in the clouds. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion was not a place where a half-step martial monarch like him could do as he pleased. Not to mention the few core elders of the Elders Institute, they were all half-step martial monarchs. Any one of those supreme elders with startling cultivations could easily kill him. The fact that those strong existences did not make a move against him was a clear indication of their attitude. This attitude made Xiao Chen feel more at ease. Xiao Chen hovered about 1 centimeter off the ground and continued walking towards Qingyun Peak. The surrounding disciples all made way for him, their gazes fixed on Xiao Chen's back. At this moment, on Qingyun Peak, the ponytailed girl whose identity medallion Xiao Chen had stolen was looking at Qingyun Peak's manager, Lu Suifeng, with misty eyes. There was a group of female disciples beside Lu Suifeng, talking about what happened. Her identity medallion had been stolen by Xiao Chen, and she was very anxious. Fortunately, she met a group of fellow disciples who were going to enter the mountain. When that group of sisters found out about what happened to her, they immediately rode on a flying beast and flew to Qingyun Peak. They wanted Lu Suifeng to seek justice for them. After Lu Suifeng heard this, he muttered, "You are saying that a fellow disciple wearing white clothes recognized Qingyun Peak's secret technique with one glance and casually broke it? Furthermore, he snatched your identity medallion?" Ling Qianqian nodded gently and said in a wronged manner, that senior brother was a bully. Not only did he snatch my identity medallion, he even said that I had not practiced well enough and that I needed to continue working hard. Lu Suifeng said angrily, "How preposterous. Since when can others speak ill of the people of my Qingyun Peak? Stop crying and follow me down the mountain. Let's find that fellow and see elder brother Suifeng help you vent your anger." The group of female disciples followed Lu Suifeng and quickly headed down the mountain. Xiao Chen climbed all the way from the foot of Qingyun Peak. He felt very rueful. Back then, there were very few people on Qingyun Peak. It was hard to see anyone on the huge peak. But now, with just a few steps, he could see some disciples either practicing or chatting. There were even disciples guarding the key passages, so Xiao Chen had no choice but to use some techniques to avoid them. What surprised him the most was that these disciples were all young women with voluptuous figures. He didn't see a single male disciple. Ling Qianqian, who had followed Lu Suifeng down, had just reached the middle of the mountain when she saw Xiao Chen, who had a relaxed expression as he looked around. He quickly pointed at Xiao Chen and said to Lu Suifeng, "Elder brother Suifeng, he is the one who snatched my medallion. Now, he is here at our Qingyun Peak." Lu Suifeng was greatly startled as he said, "This brat is too arrogant. After snatching your medallion, he still dares to come to our Qingyun Peak. Come, follow me. Watch me teach this brat a lesson. Under Lu Suifeng's lead, the group of female disciples rushed down aggressively. Soon, they arrived before Shao Chen. When they got close, Lu Suifeng saw Shao Chen's face. His eyes were filled with astonishment. His rushing footsteps immediately stopped. Later, a few of the girls could not react in time. A few of them knocked into his back. Elder brother Suifeng, why aren't you moving? Go and teach him a lesson. He personally scolded me for not practicing the profound wind chop well. You were the one who taught me all my martial techniques. Lu Suifeng's earlier anger vanished. He smiled somewhat embarrassedly. I can't teach this fellow a lesson. Brother Suifeng, it's been a long time. Lu Suifeng stepped forward and patted Shao Chen's shoulder. He smiled and said, you are finally willing to come back. Return the medallion to the young lady. Lu Suifeng took the medallion from Shao Chen's hand and handed it to Ling Qianqian. He said, I can't teach this fellow a lesson. However, someone else can. He. You all can leave first. Ling Qianqian received the medallion. She had a confused expression. It was not just her. The group of female disciples behind her were all confused as well. Didn't Lu Suifeng say that he would help Ling Qianqian get revenge? Why was he suddenly chatting and laughing with this person? Elder brother Suifeng, who is this person? One of the girls asked, feeling confused. Lu Suifeng smiled and said, this is the white-robed bladesman that you all keep talking about. Shao Chen, you can all leave now. When the group of girls heard Lu Suifeng's words, the way they looked at Shao Chen immediately changed. It was like they could see stars twinkling in their eyes. Shao Chen could not stand this gaze. He quickly pulled Lu Suifeng to a rather desolate cliff on Qingyun Peak and asked what was going on. Lu Suifeng giggled and said, these girls are all your admirers. It is all thanks to you that they are able to do so. Thanks to you, the battle at the Heaven Ascending platform 2 years ago spread the name of our Qingyun Peak. In the second year, several outer disciples came to Qingyun Peak. Now, Qingyun Peak is no longer the weakest of the 7 main peaks of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Although its accumulations are not as deep as Tianyue Peak, it is full of youthful energy. Every year, there will be a large number of new disciples. There will be an endless stream of new blood. Sooner or later, it will become the top peak of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Shao Chen was mildly surprised. He had not expected his battle that day to bring about such a huge change to Qingyun Peak. However, this was a good thing. There was no need to fear more. Only when Qingyun Peak truly developed would Lu Riyue be able to put down the burden in her heart and be with him. Suddenly, Shao Chen thought of something. He asked, why do the disciples in this mountain look like young girls? There is not a single man to be seen. Lu Suifeng said righteously, you really have to thank me for this. I only take in female disciples for your sake. As your brother-in-law, I have the responsibility to guard this place for you. I cannot let other men get close to my sister. Shao Chen smiled and said, I see those girls calling you elder brother Suifeng. Do you sound like you enjoy it? Are you really doing this for my sake? Lu Suifeng coughed twice and said, let's not talk about this. I'll bring you to meet my sister. She should be at the dueling grounds now. Greetings, instructor. Greetings, instructor Suifeng. As the two of them walked, the female disciples they met would respectfully greet Lu Suifeng as instructor. As Lu Suifeng walked, he explained, don't look at me like that. Actually, Elder Sis is the one teaching most of the martial techniques. I am just assisting her. Shao Chen shook his head and said, with your strength, it should not be a problem for you to teach these 14 or 15-year-old girls. In these 2 years, Lu Suifeng's strength had undergone a metamorphosis. He had advanced from inferior grade martial saint to peak superior grade martial saint. He was only a step away from breaking through the barrier to martial king. Such strength would be considered at the peak among the younger generation of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Even in the entire Great Qin nation, it would be considered top-notch. However, when compared to the entire continent, especially during the budding age of geniuses, it would not be considered top-notch. However, no matter what, with Lu Suifeng's current strength as a peak martial saint, it was more than enough to teach these martial Grand Master female disciples. Lu Suifeng said seriously, "It is all thanks to that flowing light marigold leaf of yours. The further you go, the more you will understand the importance of comprehension." As they spoke, the dueling grounds soon appeared before the two of them. This dueling grounds was not unfamiliar to Xiao Chen. Back when he was at Qingyun Peak, he would spend most of his time there. "Go in by yourself. I will not stay to accompany you." After sending Xiao Chen off, Lu Suifeng performed a cupped fist salute and took his leave. When Xiao Chen pushed open the doors of the dueling grounds, he saw that the previously empty dueling grounds was now filled with people. There were 200 to 300 Qingyun Peak female disciples lined up neatly. They were like white poplar trees standing in the middle of the grounds. In front of them, Lu Riyue was explaining some of the unique martial techniques of Qingyun Peak. Occasionally, she would answer the questions of the disciples. She wore tight-fitting blue cultivator robes, revealing her exquisite and graceful figure. 2 years had not left any mark on her face. She was the same as before. Every movement she made was graceful and flawless. Xiao Chen stopped walking and revealed a faint smile. He leaned against the door and watched with interest. Seeing Lu Riyue's expression, Xiao Chen felt a faint satisfaction in his heart. For a moment, he did not have any other thoughts in his mind. Lu Riyue, who was completely focused, did not sense Xiao Chen's arrival. She continued to explain the unique points of Qingyun Peak's martial techniques. When Lu Riyue got excited, she would draw the small saber at her waist and demonstrate it personally. She wanted these young girls to understand the profound things in simple terms. This month's 3 days of lessons will end here. When you go back, remember to work harder. If there is anything you do not understand, remember to communicate with your fellow disciples. 2 hours later, Lu Riyue waved her hand and dismissed the 200-odd female disciples. After the crowd dispersed, Lu Riyue's spirited face finally revealed some fatigue. Just as she was about to leave, Lu Riyue's spirited face revealed a trace of fatigue. Just as she was about to leave, her gaze suddenly landed on Xiao Chen, who was standing at the door. Her body paused, thinking that she had seen wrong. After looking carefully, she was certain that the bladesman wearing white clear-wined robes with a meteor-shaped lunar shadow saber at his waist was Xiao Chen. Lu Riyue put down what she was doing and walked over quickly. Tears gathered in her eyes. She still could not believe that the person in front of her was Xiao Chen. Lu Riyue slowly raised her fair and slender right hand and moved it towards Xiao Chen's face. She really wanted to know if what she saw was an illusion or not. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and grabbed Lu Riyue's wrist. Then, he naturally pulled her into his embrace. There were many things he wanted to say in his heart. However, when the words reached his mouth, he did not know what to say. He could only mutter, "I'm back." A familiar person, a familiar smell, a familiar voice. Lu Riyue finally believed that the person she was thinking of was indeed in front of her. "How have you been these 2 years?" Lu Riyue asked softly as she let go of Xiao Chen's embrace and blushed slightly. "Let's go out first. There are too many people here." Holding Lu Riyue's hand, Xiao Chen led her out of the door. Lu Suifeng, who was eavesdropping with a group of female disciples, was the first to bear the brunt of the door slamming into his face. Chapter 546. "Damn, there is no need to be so ruthless," Lu Suifeng said depressedly as he rubbed his face. "Instructor Suifeng, was that person earlier really the white-robed bladesman? I heard that back then, he was not as strong as you, right? How strong is he now? I heard someone say that he scared away 5 Biyun Peak elders by himself. That Biyun Peak's peak master, Song Qianhe, did not even have the ability to stand before him. The girls fired questions at Lu Suifeng. If it were anyone else, they would not have been able to endure it. However, Lu Suifeng chuckled and surrounded the girls. He said calmly, "Don't be in such a rush. Ask them one by one. Let me tell you everything from the beginning." At the same time, the news of Xiao Chen's return to Qingyun Peak spread like wildfire throughout the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Furthermore, the story of Xiao Chen's encounter with Biyun Peak's Song Qianhe was recounted vividly. In the end, he even scared away 5 superior-grade martial kings. When they thought of the legendary battle from 2 years ago and saw the strength that Xiao Chen displayed today, several cultivators of the same generation as Xiao Chen sighed. At the edge of a small cliff on Qingyun Peak, Xiao Chen and Lu Riyue leaned against a rock. There was a waterfall in front of the cliff. The sound of water splashing could be heard continuously. The wind blew past the two of them as Xiao Chen spoke softly about his encounters in the past 2 years. He told Lu Riyue everything he had experienced since he left the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. From the first time Lu Riyue saw Xiao Chen, she had already guessed that Xiao Chen's future accomplishments would not stop at the great Qin nation. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion could not hold him back. However, she had not expected that the stage that Xiao Chen wanted would be so big. Xiao Chen was not very eloquent. What should have been a very exciting experience sounded very ordinary when he spoke about it. This was similar to his low-profile character. Lu Riyue squinted her eyes slightly. However, she was very engrossed in listening, carefully savoring every word. She was the only one who could understand the thrill and danger that Xiao Chen was facing from Xiao Chen's calm tone. Time passed by unknowingly. The sound of the wind and the sound of water lingered in their ears. Xiao Chen shrugged slightly and smiled, "Tell me about yourself. How have you been doing these past 2 years?" What Lu Riyue said was exactly the same as what Lu Suifeng said. After he left, Qingyun Peak developed very quickly in the 2nd year. In the past 2 years, she had to guide Lu Suifeng to teach the new disciples during the day and cultivate by herself at night. Every day could be said to be extremely busy. Even so, Lu Riyue managed to become a peak superior grade martial king. This showed how strong her talent was. If not for Xiao Chen being over 24 years old, he would not have any problems passing the preliminaries of this 5-nation youth competition. Lu Riyue asked with some anticipation, "How long do you intend to stay here this time?" Xiao Chen thought for a while before replying, "About 2 months. There is still half a year before the 5-nation youth competition begins. I still have to do some things for the Xiao clan." When the sky turned completely dark, Xiao Chen reluctantly said goodbye to Lu Riyue and returned to his courtyard. The stars were resplendent in the night sky. Xiao Chen practiced the 4-season saber technique in the courtyard. At the same time, he comprehended the state of the 4th and final move. Spring uses thunder, summer uses fire, autumn uses rain. However, he could not think of what to use in winter as a catalyst. If he followed by Shuehe's style, winter would naturally use snow, using the state of extreme cold to seal the world in ice. Xiao Chen did not want to follow by Shuehe's style. He wanted to create his own 4-season saber technique. Hence, he could not use snow as a catalyst. Hua! 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 Under the influence of Xiao Chen's saber intent, the fallen leaves in the courtyard formed a ball in the air at some point in time. As Xiao Chen sheathed his saber, the ball of fallen leaves immediately exploded. The remnant saber intent still lingered on the fallen leaves. When it burst out, it created thousands of holes of various sizes in the surrounding ground. The first elder, Jiang Qi, had just entered the courtyard. When he stepped on the ground, a dull explosion immediately came from the ground. There seemed to be 10 odd sharp saber intents under the sturdy ground. They all formed a formation and started circulating their cultivation techniques. With a loud bang, under the astonished gazes of the first elder and the others, the ground of the courtyard suddenly exploded, sending a cloud of dust into the air. The countless fallen leaves hidden in the dust were still spinning. A misty saber intent spread out, causing the weapon in Jiang Qi's hand to buzz and tremble. It really is saber intent. The first elder, Jiang Qi, exclaimed excitedly as he held the trembling weapon in his hand and looked at the spinning fallen leaves in the air. Jiang Qi had advanced to half-step martial monarch many years ago. Even with the vast resources of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, he had not been able to break through to martial monarch. He might not have any hope of becoming a martial monarch in this lifetime. However, as a half-step martial monarch, Jiang Qi relied on the vast resources to temper himself, becoming an unrivaled existence. If Shao Qin had not comprehended saber intent, Jiang Qi would have an 80% chance of defeating Shao Qin. However, now that Shao Qin comprehended saber intent, Jiang Qi did not even have a 60% chance. Something like saber intent did not depend on one's cultivation realm or cultivation. It only depended on one's comprehension ability. Some people might not be able to comprehend saber intent even after becoming a martial sage. However, some people might be able to comprehend saber intent as a martial saint. Only by comprehending saber intent could a bladesman be considered a complete bladesman. First Elder. Shao Qin said respectfully with a cupped fist salute as he leaped over the flying soil and arrived beside Jiang Qi. Jiang Qi had done Shao Qin a favor. Furthermore, it was not an ordinary favor, it was a favor of saving his life. Even though Shao Qin's strength surpassed Jiang Qi's, he did not dare to show any disrespect. When Jiang Qi saw Shao Qin's attitude, he felt very satisfied. He carefully sized up Shao Qin and sighed softly, "You are old. 2 years ago, you were just a peak martial saint. In merely 2 years, you actually advanced to half-step martial monarch. You are no weaker than me. You are so young, and you even comprehended saber intent. Your future is limitless." Shao Qin shook his head and said, "My saber intent is not worth mentioning. It has not reached small perfection. If it had reached small perfection, the remnant saber intent on the fallen leaf would have returned to the saber the instant I withdrew my saber." Indeed, Shao Qin was still far from achieving small perfection in saber intent. The first elder, Jiang Qi, smiled faintly and chatted with Shao Qin. He cleverly did not mention Shao Qin's oath. "Shao Qin, actually, I have a presumptuous request this time. Can you represent the Heavenly Saber Pavilion in this 5-nation youth competition?" After hesitating for a while, Jiang Qi finally stated his purpose for coming here. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion had its own branch in Desolate City. However, it was not as big as the other sections. Hence, the first elder, Jiang Qi, was not like the other disciples of the sect. He did not know anything about Shao Qin after he left. Jiang Qi was very clear about Shao Qin's achievements in the ancient desolate land. He knew that Shao Qin could rival the demonic geniuses of the great Jin nation. With Shao Qin's strength, he would not have any problems entering the top 50. If such a person could represent the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, the benefits would be immeasurable. Shao Qin thought for a while and made a decision in his heart. He nodded and said, "I will gladly do so. I came from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion in the first place. Furthermore, the first elders saved my life. Since you think highly of me, Shao Qin will naturally do his best." Shao Qin agreed so straightforwardly. Jiang Qi was stunned. He only reacted after a while. He smiled and said, "Good. Good. Good. Your pure heart has not changed. Don't worry. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion cannot compare to those rich and powerful factions. However, the resources you deserve will not be lacking." Jiang Qi laughed loudly and said, "Good," 3 times in a row. He was clearly in a carefree mood. The next day, Jiang Qi ordered people to deliver 3 boxes. The first box contained 10,000 inferior-grade spirit stones. The second box contained 10,000 medial-grade spirit stones. When Shao Qin opened the third box, he immediately felt a vast amount of spiritual energy. Unexpectedly, it was filled with superior-grade spirit stones. Furthermore, there were 10,000 of them. Even Shao Qin was somewhat astonished. He knew about the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's foundation. Taking out 10,000 superior-grade spirit stones in one go was truly a huge investment. Xiao Qin smiled faintly and put away the spirit stones. Although there were not many resources, they were timely help. Xiao Qin was now truly poor. He had exhausted all his resources in the boundless sea. He was in urgent need of resources. However, inferior-grade spirit stones and medial-grade spirit stones were already useless to him. Xiao Qin handed them over to Lu Ryue for the night. After Xiao Qin received the spirit stones, it meant that he could not go back on his word. So, after another day, the news that Xiao Qin would represent the Heavenly Saber Pavilion in the Five-Nation Youth Competition spread. Under Jiang Qi's purposeful control, this news spread throughout the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion. When all the disciples heard this news, they were all extremely excited. They had not expected that Xiao Qin, who had been forced out of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, would return to help them. During the days on Qingyun Peak, Xiao Qin adjusted his mentality. He allowed himself to relax during the day, accompanying Lu Ryue as she walked around. Occasionally, he would teach the juniors of Qingyun Peak. On the 15th of the 7th month, 1 month had passed since Xiao Qin arrived at Qingyun Peak. On this day, something major happened in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Even the Elders' Assembly's Jiang Qi was startled. The previous top genius, Murong Chong, had returned as well. The Five-Nation Youth Competition would begin in half a year. Furthermore, this Five-Nation Youth Competition might open the door to the upper realm. Not only the 5 great nations, but also the Great Jin, Chu, Great Tang, Great Xia, and Great Qin, the ancient desolate land, the surrounding barbarians, and the vast boundless sea. All the genius cultivators and demonic geniuses under the starry heavens would participate. The Five-Nation Youth Competition would usher in an unprecedented grand occasion. The Germinal Organization of Cultivators might lose the word Germinal because of this battle, ushering in a grand age of tens of thousands of cultivators. In this era of great competition, everything would be reshuffled. This was not only an opportunity for cultivators to stand out, it was also an opportunity for sections. At this crucial moment, Murong Chong returned. Naturally, the management of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was very excited. Back then, Murong Chong was the top genius of the Shihe province. No one could compare to him. 3 years ago, he was already a superior-grade martial saint. However, because he lost to Xiao Qin in one move, he had to go on experiential training. Chapter 547. The people of the Elders' Assembly originally thought that with Murong Chong's talent, he would have been poached away by the other sects long ago. They did not expect him to return to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. However, he also had some misgivings in his heart. He was afraid that after this Murong Chong was defeated by Xiao Qin, he fell to the bottom of the valley and was unable to rise again. As for the ordinary people, they could not catch the attention of the other great sections. That was why they returned to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Thus, the elders, led by Jiang Qi, immediately received Murong Chong. They wanted to gauge his strength. On Qingyun Peak, Xiao Qin heard from Lu Suifeng that Murong Chong had returned. He felt somewhat surprised. Unlike the people from the Elders' Assembly, Xiao Qin clearly knew that Murong Chong was not the kind of cultivator who would collapse after suffering a setback. With Xiao Qin's talent, he would definitely be valued by the other great sections. To be able to resist such a temptation and return to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Murong Chong was also on the same path. Lu Sui said, he is probably back for the Five-Nation Youth Competition. If there are no surprises, he will definitely come and look for you tonight. Xiao Qin smiled softly and said, I have not seen him for more than 2 years. I am indeed looking forward to seeing how much he has grown. Lu Suifeng sighed softly, the requirements for the Five-Nation Youth Competition will probably be higher this time around. You might need to be at least a martial king to register. Any cultivator would definitely want to go and take a look at the Five-Nation Youth Competition. Even if they did not rank high, they would be able to broaden their horizons by going. Naturally, Lu Suifeng was no exception. Unfortunately, he was stuck at the bottleneck of a martial king. There was still half a year left, and it would be difficult for him to overcome it. With a thought, Xiaoqin casually took out 1,000 superior-grade spirit stones and handed them to Lu Suifeng. He said, "Use these superior-grade spirit stones to cultivate for the next half a year. When you officially make your breakthrough, I'll help you find some natural treasures. You have to build a good foundation for breaking through to Martial King." Xiaoqin had experienced breaking through the barrier of Martial King before. One had to have a firm and solid foundation. Otherwise, even if one broke through, they would only be an ordinary Martial King. A person's foundation was determined by the cultivation technique they practiced, the grade of the spirit stones they usually used, the heavenly treasures they used when making a breakthrough, and their own bones. Xiaoqin could not help Lu Suifeng with regards to his aptitude and cultivation technique. However, he could still think of a way to obtain good spirit stones and natural treasures. Lu Suifeng rejected, "How can I do that? You already gave us so many spirit stones. Furthermore, it would be a waste for me to use superior-grade spirit stones now." Xiaoqin advised, "Don't be afraid of wasting. Even if you waste a large amount of yuan qi in the upper-rank spirit stones, the effect is still much better than the middle-rank spirit stones and the lower-rank spirit stones. Don't worry about this when you are breaking through." Naturally, it was a great waste to use superior-grade spirit stones when one was a martial saint. However, there was no need to care about this when making a breakthrough. Under Xiaoqian's repeated persuasion, Lu Suifeng finally accepted the 1,000 upper spiritual stones. The moon hung above the treetops, illuminating the land. It was late at night. Inside the courtyard, Xiaoqin held his saber hilt with his right hand as he looked at the fallen leaves in the courtyard, deep in thought. "Pooh!" Xiaoqin drew his saber by 1 centimeter. The pitch-black saber instantly glowed with a purple light. A sharp saber intent spread out, creating a boundless strong wind. The strong wind blew the fallen leaves down, causing them to dance in the courtyard. They rose and fell, falling heavily. Ka-xie. When Xiaoqin drew the lunar shadow saber, a boundless saber intent soared into the sky. All the fallen leaves immediately buzzed and spun in the air. With the support of the saber intent, the normally light fallen leaves had turned into a sharp killing weapon. A regular martial saint would not be able to block it and would end up covered in wounds. Withdraw. In an instant, the lunar shadow saber returned to its scabbard at lightning speed. The spinning leaves suddenly stopped and fell back to the ground. Xiaoqin revealed a satisfied expression. He said softly, "After 1 month, although I still have not figured out what to take for winter, my saber intent has finally reached small perfection. I can release and withdraw it as I please." Hu Qi. Just at this moment, a strong wind blew in the courtyard. A cold saber intent spread out in the strong wind. The fallen leaves that had just fallen were suddenly swept up again. The fallen leaves spun and buzzed. They were like thousands of blades flying in the sky, heading for Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin smiled faintly. His right hand, which was holding the saber, moved quickly. A sharp saber intent gushed out as he drew his saber. Under the influence of Xiaoqian's saber intent, the falling leaves that filled the sky started spinning anti-clockwise. Bang! 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 Under the pressure of the two saber intents, the falling leaves in the air could not withstand such a strong force. They all exploded, turning into countless shards and falling down like rain. When the dust settled, a thick layer of broken leaves covered the empty space in the courtyard. Xiaoqin looked to the front. Murong Chong, dressed in black, stood on the walls of the courtyard, holding a scarlet saber in his hand. Murong Chong's aura was like a sharp saber, radiating a sharp light as he stood proudly in the sky. The two withdrew their sabers at the same time. Murong Chong's figure flashed, and he landed on the ground. Then, he casually walked over to the stone table in the courtyard. However, Murong Chong's gaze remained fixed on Xiaoqin. There was a faint shock in the depths of his eyes, but he hid it very well. After a long time, Murongchong sighed. After not seeing you for more than 2 years, I originally thought that I could defeat you easily. Who knew? I still cannot see through you. Xiaoqin said softly, it is the same for you. Not only have you reached half-step martial monarch, but you have also comprehended saber intent. In the end, Murongchong did not fall. Murongchong smiled and said, why did you come back? With your talent, there should have been a super sect that extended an olive branch to you. Xiaoqin said calmly, I am the same as you. Whatever reason you have, I have. With the talent of the two of them, the small mountain that was the Heavenly Saber Pavilion could not hold them back. However, the two of them were people who knew how to repay favors. They hoped to use this opportunity to repay the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's kindness. If one asked for the reason, there was no need to say it. 3 days from now, I will be waiting for you on the heaven viewing platform. We will only compete in the saber. Murongchong enunciated every word. The battle 2 years ago was Murongchong's greatest defeat in the past 20-odd years. He had lost to a newcomer in front of thousands of people in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. In that battle, not only had he lost his position as the top disciple of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, he had also lost the love he had hidden in his heart forever. Murongchong was not someone who haggled over every ounce. However, he had his pride. Naturally, he had to think of a way to take back what he had lost. Xiaoqin accepted the other party's challenge without any fear. He said calmly, sure. We will meet on the Heaven Ascending platform 3 days from now. As you said, we will only compete in the saber. Early the next morning, the news of Murongchong challenging Xiaoqin quickly spread throughout the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Back then, it was also on the Heaven Viewing platform. The classic battle between Xiaoqin and Murongchong was still vivid in the minds of many disciples. The two moons competed with each other, the winds blew, the clouds churned, and the sky changed color. Now, 2 years later, the two of them had their own accomplishments. They would fight again in the same place with their own glory. Would Murongchong defeat Xiaoqin and reclaim his position as the top disciple of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion? Or would Xiaoqin win again, suppressing Murongchong? Before it started, the many Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples were filled with anticipation for this battle. 3 days passed in a flash. Back at Xiaoqin's residence, Lu Riyue said, are we really not going? Xiaoqin held Lu Riyue's hand and smiled faintly, there is really no need. We are only competing in the saber. It is not a true battle to the death. It can't even be considered a true exchange of pointers. Competing in the saber, this was a term used by bladesmen. The literal meaning was when two people attacked at the same time to see whose saber was stronger. It sounded very simple, but it was incomparably complicated when it came to actual operation. The instant the saber left the hand, not only did it contain essence, but it also contained the cultivator's state and saber intent. Under normal circumstances, when competing with a bladesman who comprehended saber intent, it would be useless, no matter how strong the first two were. However, Murongchong and Xiaoqin both comprehended saber intent. It was hard to say who was stronger. However, Xiaoqin was very confident in himself. Aside from saber intent, his state of massacre and state of thunder had already reached their limits. As his cultivation increased, they would continue to grow stronger. Furthermore, the essence in Xiaoqian's body was terrifyingly pure. He had used countless natural treasures and tempered himself with a heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Furthermore, he had the spirit-gathering pearls. It would be hard for anyone in the same generation to be stronger than him. No matter what fortuitous encounters Murongchong had, he would not be able to compare to Xiaoqin. Unless he was the proud disciple of a super sect, born with countless natural treasures and had cultivated more than 10 years more than Xiaoqin, he would barely be able to surpass him. However, as time went by, the gap between these demonic geniuses and Xiaoqin would shrink. In the end, he would surpass them all. Don't worry, just wait for my good news. Xiaoqin let go of Lu Riyue and soared into the sky, disappearing from Lu Riyue's sight in the blink of an eye. As Lu Ryue watched Xiao Chen leave, she bit her lips and revealed a contemplative look. Not too long ago, when Xiao Chen first came to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, he needed to be protected under her wings. However, in merely 2 years, he had completely surpassed her. Lu Ryue withdrew her gaze and revealed a determined expression. She muttered to herself, "It looks like I have to take some time out to temper myself. Otherwise, if this little fellow surpasses me by too much, it will be too embarrassing." Many disciples had already received the news and were already waiting in the huge drill grounds of the heaven viewing platform. The sun above their heads was scorching hot, but it still could not resist the enthusiasm of the crowd. The discussions had not stopped since the beginning. Who do you think will win? 2 years ago, the two of them were evenly matched. Xiao Chen barely won. It is hard to say. I heard that Murong Chong is already a half-step martial monarch. Xiao Chen is also a half-step martial monarch. However, he only revealed a move that day and did not see his exact strength. However, the two of them are competing in the saber and not in a true duel. They should be able to determine the victor very quickly. Let's just wait and see. Whoever's saber is stronger, it means that they are stronger. 2 years ago, before the duel between Xiao Chen and Murong Chong, all the cultivators were leaning towards Murong Chong, believing that Xiao Chen would not be able to win. 2 years later, this duel was filled with uncertainty. No one dared to say who would win. Chapter 548. The 12 elite elders of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Elders' Assembly were gathered on the tall platform. They did not want to miss out on this duel either. As of now, Xiao Chen and Murong Chong were no weaker than them. Several of the elders were not even as strong as the two of them. An elder with very small eyes sighed softly, "We are really getting old. Only in this budding age of geniuses can there be geniuses growing so fast. Unfortunately, we are all old. We are destined to be spectators." Ha ha. To be able to be a spectator and witness the geniuses of geniuses is pretty good. My life is not in vain. Indeed, our Heavenly Saber Pavilion already has 2 geniuses. In that case, how many geniuses are there in the entire starry heavens? When they all mature, the geniuses of geniuses will descend. What kind of majestic scene will appear in the world? The first elder, Jiang Qi, smiled faintly and said, "What is the point of saying all this? After all, these 2 geniuses have agreed to fight for our Heavenly Saber Pavilion. When the time comes, our Heavenly Saber Pavilion will only rise up." Xiao! Xiao! 2 sharp figures flew over from the east and west of the drill grounds. They were extremely fast and landed in the blink of an eye. They are here. Murong Chong and Xiao Chen are here. The people in the spectator stands who had been waiting for a long time immediately burst into an uproar. Murong Chong looked at his surroundings and his thoughts drifted back to 2 years ago. The scene back then was the same as now. There were no empty seats. Murong Chong was originally in high spirits, wanting to take down Qingyun Peak in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, he lost. After more than 2 years, when he saw such a scene again, he could not help but feel rueful. Harboring a desire to win, Murong Chong's sharp gaze was like a knife as he looked at Xiao Chen. He said in a clear voice, "Xiao Chen, one saber strike to decide victory." "As you wish." The two of them placed their right hands on their saber hilts at the same time. A boundless aura, state, aura, and saber intent started to gather. Murong Chong activated his state of wind and a strong wind blew behind him, kicking up a boundless cloud of dust. The white clouds above him churned endlessly. For a moment, the wind and clouds surged, and the world changed color. Xiao Chen activated the state of slaughter and the state of thunder. Black thunderclouds appeared above his head, and muffled thunderclaps resounded. The entire place rumbled endlessly, causing everyone's ears to buzz. Behind him, a blood-red radiance overflowed crazily. That was the will of massacre spreading. Under the strong state of the two, before the sabers were drawn, the world had already turned dark. The aura of the impending battle made everyone hold their breath, they did not even dare to breathe heavily. Clang clang. Two resonant hums rang out. Murong Chong and Xiao Qin drew their weapons at the same time. The saber intense that they had been accumulating for a long time burst forth. The sabers hummed endlessly, and the saber intent reverberated endlessly. Then, it quickly spread out. The weapons in the hands of the thousands of cultivators immediately trembled, ready to be unsheathed at any moment. Xiao. The two of them moved as fast as lightning. The lunar shadow saber and the scarlet saber in Murong Chang's hands flew out at the same time, spinning towards each other. Hu Qi! Hu Qi! The two sabers gave off a bright light. As they spun, a bright light spread out. Everywhere the weapons passed, cracks appeared in the ground, spreading out continuously. The thousands of cultivators in the crowd all cried out in alarm. When the two saber intents clashed, they could no longer control the weapons in their hands, they all flew into the air. Thousands of sabers of all sorts were pulled into the air by the two king weapons of Xiao Qin and Murong Chong. They clashed endlessly, it was a spectacular sight. However, everyone's attention was not on that at all. Their eyes were fixed on the two rotating long sabers in the field without blinking. The speed of the sabers was incomparably fast. If Murong Chong raised his head, victory would be decided in the next moment. Dang! Under the watchful eyes of thousands of people, the two majestic sabers finally collided. The two cracks on the ground also connected with a loud bang at this moment. Ka-xie! The entire ground of the drill ground was instantly split into two halves, shocking everyone present. Even the elders on the high platform couldn't sit still. Too strong. The strength of the genius cultivators now is beyond our imagination. However, Jiang Qi had a smile on his face. He did not care that these two people were stronger than him. He said loudly, "Good. No matter who wins or loses, with such strength, our Heavenly Saber Pavilion is destined to shine in the five-nation youth competition." Pu Ci. Murong Chong, who was standing proudly, paled and vomited a large mouthful of blood. The instant the scarlet saber that belonged to him clashed with the lunar shadow saber, cracks appeared on it. Then, the cracks scattered and the scarlet saber shattered into countless pieces. Pu Ci. Woo! Woo! Only a slender, pitch-black saber remained on the drill grounds, spinning continuously. The thousands of sabers spinning around the lunar shadow saber in the sky seemed to be telling everyone who the true king weapon was. Whose saber could truly command the thousands of sabers, the king of sabers. Xiao Qin waved his hand, and the spinning lunar shadow saber turned into a beam of light and returned to its scabbard. Having lost the support of the saber intent, the thousands of sabers swaying endlessly in the sky also fell down like flowers scattered by a fairy. The vast drill grounds regained its calm. The strong wind stopped, the dust settled, the thunder stopped, and the fiery sunlight shone down once again. Only the 1,000-meter-long crack that split the drill grounds in half remained in the calm drill grounds. It was a testament to the crazy scene from earlier. Saber intent, two peak states, and the aura of a martial monarch. These two are not ordinary half-step martial monarchs. Up on the platform, the first elder, Jiang Qi, said sullenly, "We need to reevaluate their strength." Second elder, "Bring some people to communicate with Murong Chong. Tell him to give him the highest treatment for a genius. I will personally speak to Xiao Qin." The remaining elders all looked at each other. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. If they gave Murong Chong the highest treatment for a genius, then wouldn't they give Xiao Qin an even higher treatment? It would be the same as the young sect master's treatment. Don't just stand there. Quickly do as I say. This concerns the 100-year plan of our Heavenly Saber Pavilion. If anyone makes a mistake, they can forget about their position in the Elders' Assembly. Jiang Qi snorted coldly. When he saw the elders not moving, he scolded them in a serious tone. The second elder did not dare to delay. He quickly said, I'll go immediately, I'll go immediately. After 15 minutes, Xiao Chen, who was preparing to fly up, received a message from a young disciple. The young disciple said that the first elder was waiting for him in the Hidden Treasure Pavilion. The Hidden Treasure Pavilion was the place where the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had accumulated for tens of thousands of years. There were cultivation techniques, secret manuals, spirit weapons, battle armor, spirit stones, and all sorts of natural treasures. Of course, with the strength of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, its accumulations could not compare to the other great sections. Not to mention a super sect like the Haotian sect in the Great Jin Nation, the Heavenly Sword Gate in the Great Chu Nation, or the Thousand Sword Pavilion in the Great Xia Nation. Even the Heavenly Saber Pavilion paled in comparison. However, no matter what, the accumulation of a sect's inheritance and wealth would definitely make Xiao Qin sigh in amazement. The first elder, Jiang Qi, wanted to bring Xiao Qin to the Hidden Treasure Pavilion. Naturally, his intentions were clear. He wanted to gain a new understanding of Xiao Chen's strength and wanted to rope him in. Xiao Chen understood this logic. However, he still felt it was strange. No matter what, he felt that the first elder, Jiang Qi, was a little too attentive. Xiao Chen had already agreed to fight for the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Furthermore, he had accepted the 10,000 superior grade spirit stones from him. What did the first elder have to worry about? There was no need for him to give Xiao Chen any more benefits. Carrying such doubts, Xiao Chen followed the young disciple to the Hidden Treasure Pavilion. The Hidden Treasure Pavilion was an important place for any sect. Naturally, the security was very strict. Along the way, Xiao Chen saw many twists and turns. There were many twists and turns, every checkpoint was guarded by the elite disciples of the Divine Saber Camp. Occasionally, there would be a few warships cruising through the air. When Xiao Chen arrived at the Hidden Treasure Pavilion, he felt the aura of a martial monarch on the roof. That should be a supreme elder of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. With such tight security, it was easy to imagine the importance of the Hidden Treasure Pavilion to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The first elder, Jiang Qi, had been waiting at the entrance for a long time. He waved his hand to dismiss the disciple leading the way. Then, he walked over to Xiao Chen with a smile on his face. Ha ha! Xiao Chen, you should know why I brought you here, right? Xiao Chen nodded to indicate that he understood. Jiang Qi smiled and said, the strength that you and Murong Chong displayed far surpassed my expectations. The two of you have comprehended saber intent and two states. Furthermore, you have comprehended the two states to their limits. The next step would be wills. However, I think more highly of you. Do you know why? Jiang Qi answered his own question, because you ascended to the 8th floor of the ancient desolate tower. That in itself represents a kind of luck. Now that you have returned to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, you have unknowingly affected the luck of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Of course, it is a good influence. Let's cut the crap. Come with me. Jiang Qi raised his head and looked at the top of the pavilion. After a simple communication with the Supreme Elder there, the wooden doors with 18 layers of formations on them opened with a creak. The first floor was filled with gold and jade, shining with a dazzling light. At first glance, it was dazzling, it was somewhat dazzling. However, when one looked carefully, they discovered that they were all mundane items. There were gold, silver, jewels, jadeite, night pearls, gold, and precious stones. If an ordinary person took any one of these items, they would be able to enjoy glory and splendor for the rest of their lives. However, Jiang Qi and Xiao Chen did not even bother to look at them. They directly headed for the second floor. To them, these things were just worldly possessions. The items on the second floor started to look interesting. There were spirit weapon secret manuals and inferior grade spirit stones. However, Jiang Qi did not even bother to look at them. He knew that these things could not catch Xiao Chen's attention. The two continued to head up, past the 3rd floor, then the 4th floor. Gradually, there were some things that tempted Xiao Chen. However, Jiang Qi did not stop. He kept going until he reached the 7th floor. If they went up another floor, they would reach the top floor of the hidden treasure pavilion. I can only bring you up to here. I have no way of going up to the next floor. Murong Chong can only bring me to the 6th floor. However, you can go to the 7th floor, Jiang Qi smiled gently. Chapter 549. Xiaoqin sized up the scenery of the 6th floor. Compared to the resplendent golden light of the 1st floor, this floor was very plain. All the treasures had their spiritual light withdrawn. If one looked carefully, one would be able to feel a faint spiritual aura filling every corner of the room. There were tables and cabinets made of platinum glazed jade with all sorts of treasures on them. There were spirit cores of 1,000-year-old spirit beasts and demonic cores of 1,000-year-old demonic beasts. These spirit beasts and demonic beasts were all very strong when they were alive. After they died, one could still feel intense energy fluctuations from the spirit cores and demonic cores. There were also rows of bookshelves filled with all sorts of cultivation techniques and martial techniques related to the saber. None of them were lower than earth-ranked. These were obtained by the seniors of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion when they went out adventuring. When Xiaoqin looked further down, he even saw many exquisite brocade boxes containing white inferior-grade spirit-gathering pearls. In the past, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had a martial sage, Emperor Wu. It was not strange for him to be able to refine spirit-gathering pearls. However, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion no longer had a martial sage. Every time they used a spirit-gathering pearl, there would be one less. They could only treat it as a treasure and hide it. There were 10 different types of sabers on the weapons rack. All of them had a bright glow. Occasionally, they would spit out a strong saber light. This was the mark of a heaven-ranked spirit weapon. When Jiang Qi, who was at the side, saw Xiaoqin looking at the weapons rack, he said proudly, "Xiaoqin, these are the 10 heaven-ranked spirit weapons that my Heavenly Saber Pavilion has accumulated over 10,000 years. One of them is even a superior-grade heaven-ranked spirit weapon. I see that your lunar shadow saber is only a superior-grade earth-ranked spirit weapon. Just pick one." Using a heaven-ranked spirit weapon to replace the lunar shadow saber? Xiaoqin smiled faintly and shook his head in rejection. What a joke! The lunar shadow saber was once a subdivine weapon. Although it was only a superior-grade earth-ranked spirit weapon now, as long as Ao Jiao finished nourishing it, it would immediately become a heaven-ranked spirit weapon. In the future, when he found the corresponding materials, he could recover it to a subdivine weapon. If he had enough opportunities, with Ao Jiao's guidance, it might even become a new divine weapon. How could Xiaoqin exchange it? Jiang Qi was stunned for a while. Clearly, he had not expected Xiaoqin to reject his suggestion so decisively. However, this was fine as well. Coincidentally, Murong Chang's weapon was damaged. If he gave it to Xiaoqin, it would be very suitable. Then, he said, "It is up to you. Whatever you like, just take it." First, Xiaoqin said, "Xiao is spirit. Great Elder, aren't you afraid that I'll empty your entire building?" Divine Spirit Xiao, Chen, SS, Spirit Xiao, and Spirit Xiao Spirit. Chen, S Spirit, up. Xiao 2. 2. Xiao. Chen Xiao up. Xiao. Xiaoqin was the kind of person who knew how to repay favors. The more he took, the more he would owe the Heavenly Saber Pavilion a favor. The greater the favor he owed, the greater the favor he would repay in the future. Hence, Jiang Qi was not afraid of Xiaoqin taking too much. He was only afraid that Xiaoqin would look down on them and take too little. Of course, it was impossible for Xiaoqin to take everything. In the end, he took 100 inferior-grade spirit-gathering pearls, 50,000 superior-grade spirit stones, 1,000-year-old rank 9 lightning-attributed demonic beasts lightning core, and a lightning tribulation saber technique. This lightning tribulation saber technique was a peak earth-ranked saber technique. It was a saber technique that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's founder comprehended. It was weaker than the four-season saber technique but stronger than the Wukuei saber technique. The four-season saber technique was used as a trump card. This lightning tribulation saber technique was used to deal with enemies, to hide his strength. The things that Xiaochen took were within Jiang Qi's expectations. He smiled and said, "Let's go. I will bring you to Jade Maiden Peak to choose some thousand-year-old spirit herbs." After they left the treasury pavilion, the first elder, Jiang Qi, waved his hand, and a warship descended. Jiang Qi smiled and said, "Let's go." Xiaochen hesitated for a while before saying, "First elder, you have already given me so many treasures. Leave the spirit herbs for the juniors and the elders to use." Jiang Qi laughed loudly and pulled Xiaochen up. He said, "Don't overthink this. If you go to the other sects, they will give you even more. As I said, since you chose the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, our Heavenly Saber Pavilion will do our best to nurture you." The two of them boarded the deck, and the warship immediately soared into the air, heading for Jade Maiden Peak. As the warship traveled through the clouds, the wind blew from both sides, causing Xiaochen's and the First Elder's hair to flutter. Jiang Qi muttered to himself for a while before saying, "Xiaochen, it seems like you do not know what the luck of the five-nation youth competition represents. Or perhaps, you do not know how valuable this luck is." Xiaochen's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Jiang Qi and asked, "What do you mean?" Honestly speaking, Xiaochen did not know how valuable this luck was. He sincerely asked Jiang Qi for guidance. After all, the other party was in charge of a sect. He would definitely know some secrets that Xiaochen did not. Luck is something that sounds ethereal. There are no traces of it. However, it does exist. 20 years ago, my Heavenly Saber Pavilion was like the sun in the sky. However, we still suffered a great calamity in the end. In the end, it was because we did not have enough luck. If there is something substantial that represents luck, it would be the dragon vein. Dragon vein? Jiang Qi continued, the dragon vein represents the luck of the world. There are 9 dragon veins in the world. Each of the 5 great nations subdued one. The royal courts of the various nations are super sects without any status. This is also why the people of the royal courts are not allowed to participate in the 5-nation youth competition. They already possess great luck and cannot compete with the other sections. Xiaochen felt curious. He asked, "Where are the remaining 4 dragon veins now?" Jiang Qi said, "Originally, you would not be able to know about this. However, you are now qualified to know. The 4 dragon veins are under the Great Jin Nation's Wind Cloud Arena." Back then, the last heavenly emperor of the Tianwu dynasty was too ambitious. He wanted to gather all 9 dragon veins. He wanted to obtain the luck of the entire great world and compete with the heavens, becoming immortal. He offended the 4 holy lands, resulting in a rank 9 demonic calamity and being destroyed. The escape of the 9 dragons threw the spirit veins of the world into chaos, causing the density of the spiritual energy of the various great nations to plummet. Xiaochen knew about this. However, he had not expected it to be related to the ambitions of the Tianwu dynasty. The demonic calamity that destroyed the Tianwu dynasty was actually caused by the 4 holy lands. Regular cultivators would not be able to imagine such a secret. In their eyes, the 4 holy lands were the representatives of righteousness, helping to seal spatial tears everywhere. Jiang Qi smiled gently and said, "Aside from the Great Jin Nation, the royal courts of the 5 great nations are all representatives of the 4 holy lands." Back then, the Tianwu dynasty was able to unify the continent because of the support of the 4 holy lands. The puppet that they supported was disobedient. He. They just had to find another one. Wang. Xiaochen's heart trembled. He had not expected there to be such a secret. To think that the holy lands were so strong. Even someone as strong as the Tianwu emperor, a hero of his generation and famous for 10,000 years, was just a pawn in the hands of the holy lands. In that case, what was Xiaochen now? He was not even qualified to be a pawn. Suddenly, Xiaochen noticed a problem. Feeling it was strange, he asked, "First Elder, you mentioned the 4 holy lands earlier. However, why are there only the 3 holy masters? The Phoenix's Passion Palace, the White Emperor City, and the Divine Martial Gate." Although the 3 holy masters were very mysterious, their names were not a secret. No matter how one counted, there were only 3. Jiang Qi's expression changed. He knew that he had said too much. He smiled and said, "You don't have to care about that. All you need to know is that the 4 dragon veins under the Wind Cloud Arena are a chance for all the sects to compete fairly. Whoever obtains a good ranking will obtain great luck. Furthermore, with the arrival of this great age, only 1 dragon vein would awaken at most. This time, it is possible that all 4 dragon veins will awaken. So, once you obtain a good ranking, no matter how much I give you, it will be worth it." Seeing that Jiang Qi was not willing to say more, Xiaochen did not press on. He only thought to himself, "One day, I will personally unravel these mysteries. I will figure out whether the blue dragon martial spirit represents the fallen Holy Land or not." Xiaochen had once heard from Leng Yu that there were 3,000 great realms in the universe. The Tianwu continent was called the Sky Dome Realm, but it was just an ordinary realm among the 3,000 great realms. The so-called Upper Realm was a high-level realm that ruled over the 3,000 great realms. It was called the Kunlun Realm. Since then, Xiaochen had a small guess in his heart. The so-called transmigration might not be a coincidence. Earth might have been one of the 3,000 great realms in the past. Of course, this was the deepest secret in Xiaochen's heart. No matter who it was, he would not tell it. The only thing he could do now was to continuously become stronger, to increase his strength. Then, he would personally unravel the mysteries. As they spoke, the fragrant Jade Maiden Peak appeared before the 2 of them. The warship flew towards a pavilion at the edge of a cliff on Jade Maiden Peak. The pavilion leaned against the cliff. Most of it floated in the air, looking like a pavilion in the air. Xiaochen's eyes lit up. He said, "This is Martial Grand Uncle Shen's place." Jiang Qi nodded and said, "Yes, that's right. If you want to come to Jade Maiden Peak to obtain natural treasures, you have to get Martial Grand Uncle's permission. However, there should not be any problems. Don't worry." When the warship was a kilometer in the air, Jiang Qi waved his hand and stopped the warship. Then, he gently landed on the ground with Xiaochen, not making a sound. Martial Grand Uncle Shen, Martial Nephew Jiang Qi requests an audience. Jiang Qi, the person in charge of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, was very respectful at this moment. The bamboo doors of the pavilion opened gently. The noble and dignified Shen Manjun, who looked like a young girl in her prime, walked out. Chu Xinyun followed carefully behind her. When Jiang Qi saw Shen Manjun coming down from the bamboo stairs, he quickly went forward and explained the purpose of his visit. After Shen Manjun heard that, she looked at Xiaochen with interest. She smiled and said, "Unexpectedly, the little fellow from 2 years ago has grown to such an extent. Xinyun, take my medallion and bring him to the 1,000-year-old herb fields. He can take whatever he likes." Xiaochen bowed slightly and performed a cupped fist salute. "Many thanks, Martial Grand Uncle." When Xiaochen met a regular martial monarch, he would at most perform a cupped fist salute and use honorifics. This was the rule of the continent. When the weak met the strong, they would do this. If one was careless, trouble might come from the mouth. One had to show the minimum amount of respect when facing the strong. However, when Xiaochen saw Shen Manjun, he bowed. Actually, he should have guessed it long ago. A 300-year-old martial monarch was not rare. However, Shen Manjun did not look old, like a young girl in her prime. She was definitely a super expert with 1 foot in the martial sage realm. She was worthy of Xiaochen's bow. Chapter 550. After Chu Xinyun received Shen Manjuan's medallion, she led Xiaochen to the herb field. This time, Jiang Qi did not follow. As Jiang Qi watched Xiao Chen leave, he smiled and said, "Martial uncle, what do you think of this person? Is he worthy of my nurturing?" Shen Manjuan's gaze was deep like a clear pool. She said in a drawn-out manner, "This person appears gentle on the surface, but he has a cold heart. He will not be easily swayed by external forces. He is self-centered and knows what he wants. He is decisive in killing, cold and emotionless." Jiang Qi's smile froze. Could it be that I misjudged him? Shen Manjun changed the topic and smiled. "However, it is fortunate that he has not changed. From the first time I saw him until now, his heart has not changed. He has seen the prosperity of the world and obtained boundless glory. He obtained 100 consecutive victories in the wrestling ring, reached the 8th floor of the ancient desolate tower, and became the strongest person in the 4 nations. However, he has always been himself. His heart has not changed." Jiang Qi was somewhat at a loss as he said, "Martial uncle, I do not understand." Shen Manjun smiled sweetly and turned around. Her melodious voice resounded, "There is no need to understand. You only need to know that he can give you what you want." Xiao Chen and Chu Xinyun had known each other for a long time. However, when they met again, they felt somewhat restrained. Chu Xinyun had not expected that after the battle on the heaven ascending platform, Xiao Chen would return to the heavenly saber pavilion. When they first met, the difference in their cultivation was not that great. Now, it was like heaven and earth. Chu Xinyun was still lingering in the martial saint realm. However, Xiao Chen had already crossed the threshold of martial king and was about to break through to martial monarch. "Junior sister Chu, help me find 10 odd spirit herbs that are around 1,000 years old. They can raise a cultivator's cultivation." Following Chu Xinyun's lead, the two soon arrived at the 1,000-year-old herb field on Jade Maiden Peak. However, the results disappointed Xiao Chen. Although it was called a 1,000-year-old herb field, most of the spirit herbs were only 800 or 900 years old. There were very few that were 1,000 years old. There was not even one that was 2,000 years old. Perhaps Jiang Qi did not know that he had already consumed a large number of 1,000-year-old spirit herbs. Such spirit herbs were no longer useful to him. He could only casually find 10 stalks of 1,000-year-old spirit herbs and use them as gifts. In a month's time, he would be returning to Mo City. He had to bring something back. Casually taking out 10 stalks of 1,000-year-old spirit herbs. When Chu Xinyun heard this, she could not help but roll her eyes in her heart. "What do you mean by casually looking around? Did this guy really think that 1,000-year-old elixirs were cabbages? That was something that even elders couldn't get even if they begged for it." However, if she knew that Xiao Chen was only using it as a gift and felt that it wasn't good enough, who knew how she would feel? Xiao Chen thought for a moment and said, "Oh right, it must be more than 1,000 years old. Don't use those that are 800 or 900 years old to make up the numbers. They won't have any effect. 1,000 years was a threshold, just like human cultivation. Once a spirit herb passed this threshold, it would be on a completely different level from a spirit herb that was 800 or 900 years old. Its effect would be several times stronger." Hence, Xiao Chen specially reminded her. How picky, Chu Xinyun could not help but grumble in her heart. However, she still obediently went to take care of it. After all, Shen Manjun had spoken, so she had to obey. With Chu Xinyun taking care of this matter, Xiao Chen was more free. After waiting for an hour, Chu Xinyun returned with 15,000-year-old spirit herbs. After Xiao Chen checked that there were no mistakes, he smiled gently and said, "Many thanks, junior sister Chu. I will take my leave first." When Xiao Chen returned and met Jiang Qi and Shen Manjun, he thanked them again. After all, these things were useless to him. However, he still had to show basic courtesy. Jiang Qi muttered, "Xiao Chen, do you have any other requests? You can just mention them. If I can do it, I will definitely help you." Representing the Heavenly Saber Pavilion in the 5-Nation Youth Competition was one thing. However, it was unknown if he could get a good ranking. How could Xiao Chen make any requests? He could only reject the other party's kind intentions. In an extremely desolate forest on Qingyun Peak, lightning flashed and thunder roared in the sky. Dark clouds churned as Xiaoqun practiced his newly obtained lightning tribulation saber technique. The lightning tribulation saber technique was different from the four-season saber technique. It did not require much personal comprehension. All Xiaoqun needed to do was understand the meaning and state of each move. This was a saber technique that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's founder comprehended in his early years and not in his later years. Naturally, the difficulty would not be that high. Back then, when the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's founder was undergoing experiential training in a dangerous place, he coincidentally discovered a rank 9 spirit beast undergoing its lightning tribulation, preparing to transform into a human. Under the 9 layers of lightning tribulation, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's founder comprehended this 9 saber lightning tribulation saber technique. He was able to create his own saber technique before the age of 30. Furthermore, it was a peak earth-ranked saber technique. With such horrifying talent, it was no wonder the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's founder could become someone like Emperor Wu in the future. From a certain perspective, if Xiaoqun could completely comprehend his own four-season saber technique, his talent would be comparable to that of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's founder. In nature, lightning is viewed as the will of the Heavenly Tao. If anyone defies it, the Heavenly Tao will send down a lightning tribulation to destroy everything. Xiaoqun muttered, the first 3 moves of the lightning tribulation saber technique accumulate power, the next 3 become lightning, and the final 3 bring down a tribulation. When practiced to the highest level, one can steal the Heavenly Tao and punish the lightning on behalf of the heavens. I hope it will not disappoint me. Xiaoqun had personally seen Bai undergo his tribulation. The secret manual had a detailed introduction to the 9 moves of the saber technique. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's founder had also personally explained them. Furthermore, Xiaoqun had strong comprehension abilities. Xiaoqun's progress in cultivating the lightning tribulation saber technique was extremely fast. Compared to the four-season saber technique, it was at least 5 or 6 times faster. He managed to learn all 9 moves in 1 month. This was normal. The four-season saber technique required Xiaoqun to create it himself. He had to feel his way around carefully. As for the lightning tribulation saber technique, the founder of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had already paved the way for him. He just had to follow his instructions. When comparing the two, it was clear which was more difficult. However, the might of the four-season saber technique was definitely above the lightning tribulation saber technique. Furthermore, it was more suitable for Xiaoqun. After all, he had comprehended it himself. Xiaoqun sheathed his saber and stood upright. The thunderclouds above him slowly scattered. He muttered to himself, 2 months have passed already. It is time to return to Mo City to take a look. There were still 4 more months before the 5-nation youth competition. After that, Xiaoqun might have to go to the Kunlun realm. He might never have the chance to return to Mo City. Even though Xiao Xiong had chased him out of the Xiao clan and did not acknowledge him as his son, blood was thicker than water. As his son, he had to go back and take a look. Those were the brothers who had fought so hard for the promise of 10 years. Those disciples who were willing to kneel before Xiao Xiong and plead for him. How were they doing now? Good or bad? Xiaoqun had to personally take a look before he could feel at ease. Late at night, the full moon hung high in the sky. Its silver light illuminated the entire Qingyun Peak. Using the moonlight, Xiaoqun headed for Lu Ryue's courtyard, preparing to bid her farewell. Ha! 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 In the courtyard, Lu Ryue wore tight robes that perfectly outlined her alluring figure. She focused on practicing her saber techniques, 1 move at a time. Saber lights flickered. As Lu Ryue walked, a strong wind blew in the courtyard, kicking up countless fallen leaves. Now, Lu Ryue was already a peak superior grade martial king. As long as her state of wind improved further, she would be able to advance to half-step martial monarch. When Lu Ryue saw Xiaoqun outside, she grasped the small saber in her hand. She spun the saber and attacked Xiao Chen with a sharp aura. Are we going to exchange moves again? Xiao Chen smiled faintly. He was not surprised. It had been like this every night for the past few days. The two of them would exchange moves and find out what they were lacking in. However, in general, it was mostly Xiao Chen giving pointers to Lu Riyue. Now, Xiao Chen's combat experience and insight had already left Lu Riyue in the dust. Dang! 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 Under the moonlight, Xiao Chen and Lu Riyue moved quickly in the courtyard. When their weapons clashed, sparks flew. Today, you arrived 4 hours earlier than usual. Are you here to say goodbye to me? Lu Riyue said as she brushed past Xiao Chen and sent out a saber strike at lightning speed. Chi! Xiao Chen casually used his saber to block Lu Riyue's attack. He said softly, I have to return to Mo City before the 5-nation youth competition. How long will you be gone for? When will you be back? At least 1 month, at most 3 months. In any case, I will be back before the Heavenly Saber Pavilion departs for the Great Jin Nation. The two of them exchanged moves as they chatted. Under the gentle moonlight, they appeared carefree and carefree. A faint warmth flowed in their hearts. After an hour, the two of them finished exchanging moves. Lu Riyue sheathed her weapon and smiled helplessly, it has only been a month and you have improved so much. I really cannot compare to you. Xiao Chen held Lu Riyue's hand and smiled, what's wrong? Are you afraid that I will bully you in the future? Lu Riyue blushed and said softly, I will accept it if you bully me. However, if you go too high, I'm afraid the distance between us will increase. Xiao Chen pulled Lu Riyue into his embrace. His gaze was deep as he looked at the bright moon in the night sky. A melancholic smile appeared on his face as he muttered, in this world, Qingyun Peak is my second home. No matter how high or far I go, I will have to return home. Home. Lu Riyue felt warmth in her heart. She looked up at Xiao Chen and gently pecked him on the lips. Her eyes were filled with tenderness. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and carried Lu Riyue horizontally. Then, he walked towards her residence. The two of them were both youths. In the past 2 months, they had been cultivating together at night. When they were deeply in love, the so-called matters between a man and a woman would naturally happen when the conditions were right. The Great Qin Nation had 4 prefectures, the Dongming Province, the Shihe Province, the Nanling Province, and the Northern King's residence. Each prefecture had 3 continents, and each prefecture had 9 counties. Each county had a number of small cities. Mo City was such a small city. On the map of the vast Great Qin Nation, it did not stand out at all. It did not even have a note. There were many such cities in the Great Qin Nation. They were so ordinary that they could not be more ordinary. On this particular day, at the city gates of Mo City, a delicate and handsome white-robed youth walked over from the distance. He had a saber at his waist, and his expression was calm as he walked at a steady pace. Among the cultivators in the surroundings, that white-clothed youth did not wear any luxurious accessories. He did not give off the aura of a cultivator either. However, he gave off a unique aura. He stood out from the crowd, like a crane among chickens. Several of the martial masters in the surroundings could not help but look at him. The white-clothed bladesman was naturally Xiao Chen. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion was in the Shihe Province, and Mo City was in the Dongming Province. One was in the east, and the other was in the west. Xiao Chen spent half a month traveling at full speed. Chapter 551. After not being here for 4 years, Xiao Chen revealed a faint smile when he revisited this place. I'll go and see Big Brother Mo Fan first. If there is a chance, I'll get him to help me improve the Lunar Shadow Saber. The rank 6 Thunder Rock Demonic Core is no longer able to keep up with my current strength. Back when Xiao Chen forged the Lunar Shadow Saber, he was only an insignificant cultivator. Naturally, the rank 6 Thunder Rock was something that Xiao Chen did not dare to imagine. However, now that he was a half-step martial monarch, he could instantly kill a rank 6 demonic beast. This demonic core was no longer suitable for the lunar shadow saber. Thus, when Shao Chen saw a 1,000-year-old rank 9 lightning-attributed demonic core in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's hidden treasure pavilion, he immediately took one. After paying the city entrance tax, Shao Chen followed the crowd into the city. The scene on both sides of the street brought many warm memories to Shao Chen's mind. He found a restaurant in the city and sat down by the window on the second floor. Shao Chen called the waiter over and handed him a gold ingot. He said, "Answer whatever I ask." The fist-sized gold ingot dazzled the waiter's eyes. He bit down hard on it, and after he was sure it was real, he quickly bowed and smiled. "Hee, young hero, just ask whatever you want to ask." However, there is actually nothing much to ask in Mo City. Shao Chen muttered to himself for a while before asking, "Which clan is the strongest in Mo City?" The waiter laughed loudly. "Is there a need to ask?" "Naturally, it is our Zhang clan. Currently, more than half of the businesses in Mo City are in the hands of our Zhang clan." "Your Zhang clan?" Shao Chen frowned heavily. Something did not seem right. The waiter said proudly, "Hee, that's right. Now, all the restaurants and inns in the city are the businesses of the Zhang clan. Although I am not a direct descendant of the Zhang clan, I am still surnamed Zhang. We can be considered of the same sect." Shao Chen took a sip of wine. His expression was somewhat unsightly. If he remembered correctly, this restaurant belonged to the Shao clan many years ago. What about the Shao family in the past? The waiter revealed a cocky expression as he said, "The river flows east for 30 years and then west for 30 years. 2 years ago, the Shao clan was like the sun in the sky in Mo City, or even the entire Cheesy County. However, now, they can only hide at the foot of Seven-Horn Mountain. It won't be long before we lose this Seven-Horn Mountain." Shao Chen's heart sank. 4 years ago, before he left the Shao clan, he used the Ninth Heaven's Thunder formation to capture the upper echelons of the Zhang clan, the Tang clan, and the Lin clan, the #1 clan in Cheesy County. With the strength of the Shao clan, logically speaking, they should not have any opponents in the Cheesy County. What exactly happened? Could it be that the noble clans that I offended made a move? That can't be right. Feng Feishua promised me that she would not let those noble clans touch the Shao clan. With the enormous strength of the Flying Snow Trade Association, the aristocratic families would definitely not act recklessly. That would be suicidal. Pa. Shao Chen took out another 2 gold ingots and handed them over. "Let me ask you again. What exactly happened 2 years ago that caused the Shao clan to decline so quickly?" When the waiter saw the 2 gold ingots, his face lit up with joy. However, his expression was somewhat awkward. He chuckled and said, "We are just insignificant people. Actually, young hero, you should be able to guess that we do not know any confidential information. Anyway, 2 years ago, the Shao clan's clan head and a few elders were suddenly severely injured. After that, the Zhang clan and the Tang clan rose up and snatched away many of the territories that originally belonged to the Shao clan." Shao Chen waved his hand and dismissed the waiter. He was not too surprised to receive such an answer. A waiter of a restaurant was not even a cultivator. It was easy to imagine how much he would know. Shao Chen had only asked casually and did not hold much hope. However, he did have a headache now. Originally, he wanted to ask the waiter about the situation of the Shao clan. He did not expect to receive news that the Shao clan had fallen into dire straits. I should go and ask Big Brother Mo. With his strength, he should know something that the waiter did not. Ha. Shao Ling I did not expect you to come to my restaurant for a meal. Come, let's go to a private room. I, Zhang Ziyang, will treat you. Just as Shao Chen was about to pay the bill and leave, a familiar voice came from the hall downstairs. Shao Chen entered deep thought. This name, Zhang Ziyang, seemed familiar. After thinking for a while, Shao Chen finally found this person from the corner of his memory. Zhang Ziyang, the second son of the Zhang clan head. His elder brother, Zhang He, had once fought with Xiao Chen. Zhang He was still considered someone important, but this Zhang Ziyang was nothing. However, Xiao Chen's tone was very arrogant. As for Xiao Ling naturally, Xiao Chen would not forget her. She was the Xiao clan disciple who had pleaded for him when he participated in the trial with her. Xiao Chen also had a deep impression of the youth beside her. That was Yilan, a disciple of the Xiao clan with a different surname. He was deeply in love with Xiao Ling. Yilan had once met with a great calamity and was even willing to use his life to save Xiao Ling. It looked like the two of them had succeeded. Right now, the two of them seemed to have met with some trouble. Xiao Ling looked coldly at Zhang Ziyang and stood up. How unlucky. We can't even eat in peace. Yilan, let's go. Xiao Ling felt very depressed. She had eaten the signature dishes of this restaurant since she was young. This time, she could not resist sneaking out with Yilan for a meal. However, before they started eating, they ran into the person they did not want to see the most. You want to leave? Have you asked for my permission? Zhang Ziyang snorted coldly. His subordinates immediately stepped forward to cut off the two's path of retreat. Yilan's face sank. He placed his right hand on his weapon and shielded Xiao Ling behind him. He said in a cold voice, Zhang Ziyang, what are you trying to do? Don't forget what the city lord said. A strange smile appeared on Zhang Ziyang's face as he said, don't worry, since the city lord has already mediated the conflict between the two clans, I will not make things difficult for you. However, do you think you can leave without paying the bill? Dong! Xiao Ling tossed 2 ingots of gold onto the table and snorted, are you satisfied now? 50 taels of gold, there is no need for the change. Let's go. However, the 5 men blocking the entrance did not move at all. They did not have any intention of moving away. The 5 men were all peak martial grand masters. None of them were weaker than Yilan. If the 5 of them attacked together, they would be able to subdue Yilan in an instant. Zhang Ziyang was expressionless as he crushed the 2 ingots of gold on the table. He said in a cold voice, did I say that this meal was priced in gold? The 2 of you, hand over 100 inferior grade spirit stones immediately. Otherwise, none of you can think of leaving. Xiao Ling-er's and Yilan's expressions changed greatly. Xiao Ling-er cursed out loud, what do you think you are selling? Even a rank 1 spirit beast feast would not fetch such a price. Zhang Ziyang looked at Xiao Ling-er's graceful figure and a frivolous look flashed in his eyes. He smiled and said, you better understand the situation. This is my Zhang clan's restaurant. It will sell for as much as I say. Even if you don't want to accept it, you will have to accept it. You little girl, I have been eyeing you for a long time already. How dare you send yourself to the tiger's den? I will count to 5. If you are unable to pay the spirit stones, I will make you pay with your body. Zhang Ziyang acted like he was in control of the situation. Currently, the Zhang clan was in the limelight. Their words were law in Mo City. Even the city lord had to give them some face. 5, 4, following Zhang Ziyang's countdown, the 5 men at the entrance laughed sinisterly. Their auras locked onto the 2 of them, preparing to attack at any moment. 1, attack! Zhang Ziyang shouted coldly. The 5 men immediately pounced over, scaring Xiao Ling-er until she turned pale. Pooh! However, just at this moment, 5 muffled miserable cries resounded. 5 peak martial grand masters with overbearing auras stopped breathing without any warning and fell over. On the second floor, the cultivators who were leaning on the railing to watch the excitement were all astonished. Their expressions were very confused. Among the crowd, Xiao Chen held a wine flask. He revealed a faint smile as he unhurriedly poured wine into his mouth. Zhang Ziyang, who was in the hall, was startled. A manservant behind him quickly checked the 5 men's breathing. He raised his head and said with a trembling voice, "Second. Young master, it seems like, they are all dead." Xiaoling and Yilan were both at a loss. It was clearly a matter of life and death. How did it turn out like this? Still not leaving? What are you standing here for? Just at this moment, a voice rang out in the minds of the two of them. The two of them were astonished and quickly raised their heads to look around. Stop looking, you won't be able to find me. Go back. The voice rang out in their minds again. Xiaoling and Yilan exchanged glances. They knew that an expert had made a move to help them. Furthermore, that person did not want to show himself. They did not stay any longer and quickly turned to leave. Trying to leave? There is no way. Before we investigate this matter clearly, neither of you are allowed to leave. Ah. Zhang Ziyang was enraged. He leaped into the air and launched himself over. However, just as Zhang Ziyang's body soared into the air, there seemed to be a huge, formless hand pressing down on him with an irresistible force. Zhang Ziyang fell with a pa sound in an extremely comical position. It was as comical as one could imagine. Zhang Ziyang's face landed on the ground and he fell flat on his face. Ha ha ha. Young Master Zhang, your actions are not something an ordinary person can do. You must have practiced for a long time at home. Xiaoling giggled and went out the door with Yilan. Bastard! Don't run for this old man. Zhang Ziyang's right hand smashed the ground violently. His body soared into the air and he was about to stand up again. Xiaoqin smiled gently and placed the wine flask aside with his right hand. Then, he sent out a palm strike with his left hand. A huge force was transmitted through the void without leaving a trace. Pa! Another heavy thud rang out. Zhang Ziyang fell face first onto the ground. This time, he fell even more miserably. Half of his face was red, and a trace of blood seeped out of his nose and mouth. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! This old man doesn't believe that I can't stand up. Zhang Ziyang cursed angrily. He circulated his essence and smashed the ground with his right hand. When Zhang Ziyang sent out his essence, a strong wind blew and dust drifted. Zhang Ziyang soared into the air, his movements swift and agile. After that, he fell with a pa sound. Pa! 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 Zhang Ziyang tried more than 10 times. His entire face bled from the fall. However, no matter how he tried, he could not stand up. The floor of the hall cracked from the impact. Chapter 552. At first, the people watching the commotion laughed loudly. They felt that this brat was comical. When they thought of his usual arrogant attitude, they felt very carefree in their hearts. However, when they saw Zhang Ziyang's miserable state, the smiles on their faces vanished. They all felt that this brat was suffering too much. Being taught a lesson to this extent was even worse than being killed. Zhang Ziyang did not care what the others thought of him. He still tried to stand up with much difficulty. This time, he carefully placed his hands on the ground. He placed his left foot on the ground and slowly stood up. His blood-covered face revealed an expression of hope. He slowly arched his back and stood up, one step at a time. The manservant at the side quickly smiled and said, "Young master, you succeeded." Zhang Ziyang laughed heartily, "Ha ha ha. Are you messing with me? Damn. If I find out who did this, I will make sure his entire clan dies. I wonder who has the final say in Mo City now, Pa." Before he could finish speaking, Zhang Ziyang's entire body was sent flying to the ground. This time, the force he used was so great and the sound was so loud that everyone in the restaurant could hear it clearly. Everyone felt their hearts skip a beat. Many of them could not bear to watch any longer. They closed their eyes, unable to bear to watch. This brat was too miserable. Entire clan killed. Xiaoqin smiled coldly to himself. After not returning for 4 years, this group of people had really forgotten the lesson from back then. Xiaoqin walked back to his table and put down the wine flask. Then, he tossed out an ingot of gold and jumped out of the window. Of the cultivators present, the highest cultivation was only a peak martial grand master. Xiao Qian was a half-step martial monarch. They could not even sense how he had attacked. This was the difference between heaven and earth. 4 hours later, the manservant sat beside Zhang Ziyang in the hall of the restaurant. He advised bitterly, "Second young master, please get up. Everyone in the restaurant has left." Zhang Ziyang buried his head on the ground. He was in so much pain that tears flowed down his face. He scolded angrily, "Scram! What do you know? Do you want to see this second young master make a fool of himself? Even if you beat me to death, I will not get up. My face hurts. Do you know that?" In a desolate street in Mo City, Xiao Qian followed the route in his memory and slowly made his way to Mo Fan's smithy. Mo Fan's smithy was the same as it was 4 years ago. It was still extremely simple and crude. A weather-beaten signboard was erected at the entrance, looking like it would fall down at any moment. The doors were ajar. Xiao Qian stood there for a long time, thinking of the various scenes of the past. As he looked at the lunar shadow saber in his hand, he felt many emotions. 4 years ago, he forged the lunar shadow saber here. He spoke to a man from 1,000 years ago and made a promise not to make her cry. At that time, he didn't know that man's identity, and he didn't know how talented that man was. Only after Xiao Qian thoroughly understood did he realize how heavy that promise was. This promise was equivalent to him receiving the sword of the Thunder King. She was Ao Jiao, a proud sword spirit. Even the Thunder King couldn't guarantee her death with his strength. Could he, Xiao Qian, do it? Xiao Qian's expression turned grave. He sighed softly. Even the Thunder King could not guarantee the mulberry sword's death. "Can I do it? You don't have any confidence. Trashy master." Startled, Xiao Qian said joyfully, "Ao Jiao, are you awake?" Xiao Qian remembered Ao Jiao saying that if she woke up again, it would be after she had completely merged with the sword spirit. Inside the lunar shadow saber, Ao Jiao's lips curled up. She smiled softly. "When you were being intimate with her, I had already woken up. I even watched the battle for a long time." Speechless, Xiao Qian said, "Should I thank you for not making a sound and disturbing me?" Ao Jiao laughed loudly, "There is no need to thank me. I have always been very magnanimous. Don't just stand there, go in." Xiao Qian felt helpless. However, he could not do anything to Ao Jiao, so he could only push the door open and enter. "This small shop is already closed. We are not doing business today." The small shop was filled with dust. Mo Fan limped as he retreated. His back faced Xiao Qian as he tidied up some weapons on the shelves. Xiao Qian smiled softly, "Are you not doing business with me?" Mo Fan's hands paused for a moment. He turned around and saw a youth in white robes with a saber hanging at his waist. The youth had a smile on his face as he looked at him calmly. "Xiao Qian." After a long time, Mo Fan exclaimed in pleasant surprise. Compared to 4 years ago, Xiao Qian's appearance had undergone a huge change. This was especially so in terms of his temperament. It had undergone an earth-shattering change. With one glance, an ordinary person would not be able to connect him to the Shao clan's second young master from 4 years ago. When he entered Mo City, many people did not recognize him. This was the best proof. Mo Fan said ruefully, "It's really you. Your change is extraordinary. If not for this lunar shadow saber, I would not have been able to recognize you." Xiao Qian looked around the interior of the shop. There were weapons everywhere. He sighed, "It has been 4 years, but your shop has not changed much." Mo Fan smiled, "How could my shop have changed? Let's talk inside, let's drink and chat." "Wait a moment." Mo Fan asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" Xiao Qian did not say anything. He stretched out his hand, and a sword flew out from the pile of weapons. The sword was 1.3 meters long and 2 fingers wide. It was as thin as a wing, but when it danced in the air, it did not make any sound. Listening to the sword and communicating with it, Xiaoqin shouted, and the thin sword suddenly trembled non-stop, giving off a melodious sword hum. Wang! 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 In that instant, all the swords in the shop buzzed in unison. The boundless sword hum was linked together, and even the house seemed to tremble. All right, we can go in now. Xiaoqin smiled faintly and stopped. All the sword hum stopped in that instant, and everything returned to normal. Mo Fan was flabbergasted. He did not know why Xiaoqin suddenly did this. Ao Jiao, who was in the lunar shadow saber, clenched her fist and said unhappily, "This fellow is really vengeful." Unexpectedly, he did not forget my words even after 4 years. Mo City, at the restaurant where Zhang Ziyang and Xiao Ling clashed, the Zhang clan's clan head, Zhang Yan, rushed over with the elites of his clan. There was a crack in the ground, as well as Zhang Ziyang, who was crawling on the ground, refusing to get up. There were also 5 men lying on the ground, unable to get up. Zhang Yan, who was at the door, had an incredibly sullen expression. He called the manservant over and said in a sullen voice, "Tell me everything that happened in detail." Unexpectedly, 5 martial grand masters died. A martial grand master was already the elite combat force of Mo City. Now that 5 of them died in one go, Zhang Yan could not help but be in a bad mood. The manservant nervously recounted everything that happened. When he saw Zhang Yan going over to pull Zhang Ziyang up, he said anxiously, "Master, don't go over and talk to him. Young master's emotions are not right." Zhang Yan glanced at him and did not care. He thought to himself, "I am his old man. What is wrong with calling him up? Scram! Idiot! Did you not hear what I said? This old man's face hurts. I don't want to get up. No matter who calls me now, this old man will not get up." When Zhang Ziyang heard footsteps, he immediately shouted loudly. Zhang Yan's expression changed as he sent out a kick. Zhang Ziyang's entire body was sent flying with a loud bang. When Zhang Ziyang saw that it was Zhang Yan, he quickly got up. However, as he was halfway up, he seemed to think of something terrifying, so he quickly lay back down. "Father, I really cannot get up now. Don't bother about me. Let me lie here for the night first. I will feel uncomfortable if I don't lie here," Zhang Ziyang said with a sullen expression. Zhang Yan scolded angrily, "Trash! Bring him back. Bring the corpses of these 5 people back for the Lord Envoy to examine." "There is no need. I am already here." At some point in time, a young black-clad cultivator descended from the roof of the hall. Many ancient patterns were embroidered on his black robes, making him look dignified and mysterious. When Zhang Yan saw this person, he quickly said respectfully, "Greetings, Lord Envoy." The black-clad man ignored Zhang Yan's attitude and started to examine the corpses of the 5 people. He flipped over one of the corpses and discovered a bloody hole in the forehead of that person. This was the cause of death. The black-clad man opened his hand and sucked. That person's head started swaying left and right as if something was stuck inside. Shio! A tiny fragment flew out of the bloody hole. With a cracking sound, the fragment flew out. The surging power spread out, and the corpse's head exploded with a bang, directly grinding into powder. The surrounding Zhang clan cultivators, including Zhang Yan, were all startled. Their complexions turned pale. Even a remnant energy could be so powerful. How strong was the person who did it? The masked man looked at the shard in his hand and said in shock, "This is a shard of a medial-grade spirit stone. The person who made this is really generous." Zhang Yan asked carefully, "Lord Envoy, how strong is this person?" The black-clad man said indifferently, "About medial-grade Martial King. Don't bother about this. I'll deal with it. Call all the workers in the shop over. That person must have been here before. We will be able to make a judgment after questioning him." Medial-grade Martial King. Zhang Yan's chest tightened. The Shao clan's clan head was only an inferior grade martial king. If this person was a medial grade martial king, killing him would be easy. Fortunately, the Lord Envoy had spoken. Medial grade martial king would not be a problem. In the backyard of the smithy, Mo Fan drank a mouthful of wine. After he heard Xiao Chen's question, he sighed and said, "Back then, you wrote me a letter asking me to help you take care of the Shao clan. I have always remembered it. However, I cannot help you this time." Xiao Chen felt excited. Indeed, there was more to this. In the morning, he had heard from the waiter that the Shao clan's clan head and first elder were severely injured. Xiao Chen had already guessed that there was more to this. Hence, he was not in a rush to meet with Xiao Ling and first elder. He planned to hide his identity first. For years ago, Xiao Xiong was already a peak martial saint. Now that 4 years had passed, given Xiao Xiong's strength, he would definitely be a martial king. The person who could injure him was definitely a high-ranked martial king. If the Zhang clan spent some of their savings to hire an inferior grade martial king, it might be possible. However, if they wanted to hire a high-ranked martial king, the Zhang clan would not be able to afford it. If they could afford it, the Zhang clan would have conquered Mo City long ago. There would be no need to wait for the promise of 10 years. Mo Fan continued, 2 years ago, a sect called the Heavenly Saint cult came to Cheesy County. It is very powerful, and your father was injured by the people of their sect's emissary. The Zhang clan is also a puppet supported by the Heavenly Saint cult. Xiao Chen took a sip of wine and frowned. Sacred Heavenly Church. Where did they come from? I have never heard of them. Chapter 553. Mo Fan said sullenly, "I have investigated the Sacred Heavenly Church in detail. They have a great and mysterious background. I already have some guesses, but I am not sure yet. I'll just say what I am sure of. There are a total of 6 small cities in Cheesy County. Each city has a puppet supported by the Sacred Heavenly Church. They have unknowingly controlled all the underground powers of the entire Cheesy County. I spent some time visiting the other counties and discovered that there are branches of the Sacred Heavenly Church in several counties. They all use the same method to support puppets to control the underground powers of the counties. It seems like there are branches of the Sacred Heavenly Church throughout the entire Great Qin Nation. However, they are active in the counties and not the prefectural cities. Hence, they did not attract much attention." Xiao Chen entered deep thought. However, he did not think too much about it. In his opinion, the Sacred Heavenly Church was just a small fry. In the end, a sect should focus on developing its own strength. With such a small fry, when it truly angered a strong sect, any martial monarch would be able to deal with it easily. Now that he had a rough idea, Xiao Chen said, "Tell me the location of the Sacred Heavenly Church's headquarters in Cheesy County. I will personally make a trip there." It was easy to destroy a Zhang clan. However, the other party could support another Zhang clan at any time. Hence, he had to deal with the problem at its source. "Let's not talk about this for now. I have something to give you." After obtaining an answer, Xiao Chen changed the topic. He took out the 1,000-year-old rank 9 lightning attributed demonic core and said, "Aside from this matter, I would like to ask you for a favor." Mo Fan received the demonic core and took a look. His expression changed greatly as he exclaimed, "This is the demonic core of a 1,000-year-old rank 9 demonic beast. Where did you get it from? How strong are you now?" Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "A 1,000-year-old demonic beast is already a martial sage. I will definitely not be able to kill it. This is a gift from a friend. I would like you to help me insert this rank 9 lightning attributed demonic core into the lunar shadow saber. Can you do that?" Mo Fan smiled and said, "Leave it to me. With the prescription you gave me, although my leg is still a little lame, my meridians are finally open. I did not make no progress in the past 4 years." Without any hesitation, Mo Fan immediately agreed. He held the lunar shadow saber and the demonic core in his hands. He rejected Xiao Chen's offer of help and headed straight for the underground forging room. After Mo Fan left, Xiao Chen muttered to himself, "Sacred heavenly cult. I hope it won't be a big problem." No matter what, the Xiao clan was his root in this world. He, Xiao Chen, couldn't just watch the Xiao clan be in trouble without doing anything. That way, he wouldn't be able to leave with peace of mind. He would be worried and unable to calm down. It would probably take some time to reforge the lunar shadow saber. Xiao Chen did not want to waste any time. He took out 2 superior-grade spirit stones and sat cross-legged in the courtyard, entering a state of cultivation. 4 hours later, Xiao Chen's heart sank. He felt a strong aura probing him with his perception. He opened his eyes and immediately extended out his spiritual sense. He saw a strangely dressed black-clothed man standing on a roof a kilometer away from the smithy, looking in his direction with an unfriendly gaze. The black-clothed man withdrew his perception and said in a low voice, "White clothes, delicate facial features, no older than 22 years old. It seems like it is this person. However, he does not seem to be easy to deal with. Are you looking for me?" A sudden voice came from behind him. When the black-clothed man heard this, his expression changed drastically. He quickly turned his head and saw that Xiao Chen had appeared at some point in time, looking at him expressionlessly. Pretending to be mysterious. "Die." The black-clothed man's reaction was very fast. The instant he turned around, he sent out a palm strike. There was a fiery red glow in his palm. A golden heavenly rock image spread its wings and cried out, making the fiery red glow even more resplendent and dazzling. Berserk Dragon. Xiao Chen remained expressionless. He clenched his right fist tightly and all his vital qi surged. An azure dragon head appeared and roared ferociously. A resonant dragon roar resounded. Heavenly rock spreads its wings, shaking the surroundings, winds blow and clouds churn. I have the berserk dragon roar, winds and clouds break. Bang! The azure dragon head crashed into the fiery red glow. The glow shattered and vanished. The black-clothed man vomited a large mouthful of blood. The golden heavenly rock behind him shattered. The black-clothed man flew back and smashed a huge hole in the roof below. After that, there was a loud boom, and a shockwave exploded. The tall building collapsed and turned into rubble, burying the black-clothed man. This was the result of the absolute difference in strength. The black-clothed man was only a superior-grade martial king. How could he resist Xiao Chen, who was a half-step martial monarch? High in the sky, Xiao Chen looked coldly at the rubble on the ground. A murderous intent spread in his eyes. Roar! A piercing bird cry came from under the rubble. Countless stone fragments shot up from the ground and floated in the air. The black-clothed man soared into the air and the golden heavenly rock behind him reformed once more. Its might was even stronger now. Berserk Dragon, Claw. Xiao Chen's figure flickered. He was so fast that the black-clothed man could not react in time. The azure dragon claw on his left hand tore through the air. 5 bloody wounds appeared on the black-clothed man's body. The golden heavenly rock behind him cried out miserably. Its feathers flew off and it turned into beams of golden light. You are too much. Bang! 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 The black-clothed man roared ferociously. The golden heavenly rock reformed once more and charged at Xiao Chen. The fiery light in his hand looked solid, dazzling and piercing. Not enough. Berserk Dragon Break. Xiao Chen shook his head slightly. With a thought, the dragon head on his right hand and the dragon claw on his left connected head to tail, turning into a complete blue dragon. A resonant dragon roar soared into the sky. The lifelike blue dragon bared its fangs and claws as it roared ferociously. The black-clothed man's clothes were blasted into tatters. He vomited a large mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, unable to get up again. Xiao! Xiao Chen's figure flashed and arrived beside the black-clothed man. Then, Like an eagle catching a chick, he picked the black-clothed man up and asked coldly, "Why are you following me?" The black-clothed man's pale face was devoid of blood. He laughed strangely and spat out a mouthful of blood at Xiao Chen. Bang! A purple flame spewed out from Xiao Chen's right eye. The blood immediately evaporated into a bloody mist, scalding the black-clothed man until he cried out in pain. "I will ask you one more time, one last time. Who are you? Why are you following me?" Xiao Chen asked coldly with a calm expression. The black-clothed man smiled fearlessly and said, "If you have the guts, then kill me. I am just an insignificant person from the sacred heavenly church. Even if you kill me, it will not change anything. You are Xiao Chen, right? Just wait for the Xiao clan to be destroyed." In the black-clothed man's opinion, with the Xiao clan holding him back, Xiao Chen absolutely would not dare to kill him. Boom! Xiao Chen picked up the black-clothed man's body and tossed him high into the air. The black-clothed man immediately felt an irrepressible fear in his heart. Just as he was about to say something, the black-clothed man grunted in pain and stopped breathing. A purple flame arrow shot out from Xiao Chen's eyes and pierced through the black-clothed man's forehead. In that instant, the black-clothed man felt regret in his heart. However, he no longer had the chance to regret. Looking at the black-clothed man's corpse on the ground, Xiao Chen said calmly, "I do not care about the insignificant sacred heavenly church. So, you can really die now." Holding the black-clothed man's corpse in his hand, Xiao Chen rushed back to Mo Fan's smithy before the crowd surrounded him. After 4 hours, Mo Fan walked out of the underground smithy with a fatigued expression. In his hand was a brand new lunar shadow saber in its scabbard. Seeing the black-clothed man's corpse on the ground, Mo Fan was stunned. He said, "This is the envoy of the sacred heavenly church in Mo City. You killed him." Xiao Chen nodded and said, "He is just a minor character. There is no need to bother with him. Let me take a look at the saber." Ka! Holding the saber hilt with his right hand, Xiao Chen felt the surging energy in the saber. He gently pushed his right hand forward and the pitch-black saber immediately released a purple light. Bolts of flickering lightning shot out from the saber. Strands of electricity leaped around in the courtyard. Ka Xie! Xiao Chen pushed the saber forward ferociously and drew the entire saber. Instantly, a piercing purple electricity lit up the entire courtyard. Xiao Chen did not use any strength at all, it was the lunar shadow saber's own strength. Mo Fan smiled and said, "The lunar shadow saber is now a true superior grade heaven-ranked spirit weapon. It is overflowing with sharpness and electricity. Its might is 20% stronger than before." Xiao Chen revealed an excited smile on his face. He said, "I knew you were capable of this. Many thanks." Returning the saber to its scabbard, Xiao Chen took out a 1,000-year-old black profound ginseng from the universe ring and handed it over to Mo Fan, not allowing the other party to reject it. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "Don't reject it. You have taken care of the Xiao clan for so long and helped me forge the lunar shadow saber twice. Logically speaking, I owe you." A 1,000-year-old black profound ginseng was enough to increase Mo Fan's cultivation by 20 years. Honestly speaking, the temptation was very great. Ha ha. In that case, I will respectfully accept. What are your plans after this? Mo Fan asked. Xiao Chen grasped the lunar shadow saber tightly with his right hand and said calmly, "It is very simple. I will attack the root of the problem and kill them all. As long as they were a threat, he would have to eliminate them." Xiao Chen could not be bothered to consider other methods. The 5-nation youth competition was only a few months away. All the genius cultivators were cultivating bitterly, waiting for that moment to arrive. Xiao Chen did not have much time to think. Mo Fan asked, "Do you not intend to make a trip to the Xiao clan? You have done so much. If your father knew about it, he might reconsider." Xiao Chen paused for a moment and revealed a bitter smile. He shook his head and said, "There is no need. Since he chased me away, he must have his own plans. I will just come back and take a look from afar. Let's go. Smiling faintly, Xiaochen waved his hand and said goodbye to Mo Fan. Heavenly Jade Mountain was the largest mountain range in Chizi County. Even Mo City's Seven-Horn Mountain was not even half as big. However, compared to Seven-Horn Mountain, Heavenly Jade Mountain was not even half as valuable. This was because the mountain did not have a spirit vein, spirit herbs, or spirit beasts. It was just a desolate mountain. However, on this desolate mountain that no one paid any attention to, a huge castle had been built at some point in time. Although the castle was large, it was built in a very low-profile manner. It was hidden in the lush green forest. If one did not fly high into the sky, it would be hard to discover it. On the city walls, there were cultivators holding crossbows every few meters. They looked around vigilantly. It looked like the walls were made of iron, impenetrable. Chapter 554. This castle was the headquarters of the Sacred Heavenly Church in Chizi County. After learning its exact location from Mo Fan, Xiaochen rushed over in half a day. What are you planning to do? Ao Jiao asked from within the lunar shadow saber. Xiaochen, who was hidden in the clouds, raised his head and looked at the setting sun. He said softly, "Let's wait for the sky to turn dark." When Xiaochen scanned the castle with his spiritual sense, the so-called defense of this castle was like a joke to him. He could see everything clearly, there were no secrets at all. There were 5 martial kings in the castle. However, the strongest was only a superior grade martial king. The other 4 were only inferior grade martial kings. They could not pique Xiaochen's interest at all. He could easily destroy them with the flip of his hand. This was also why Xiaochen did not think highly of the Sacred Heavenly Church from the start. No matter how good their plans were, before absolute strength, they were all just a joke. However, Ao Jiao was not as relaxed as Xiaochen. She said, "Have you ever thought that the small Chizi County has 5 martial kings? If that is the case, how many bases does the Sacred Heavenly Church have? An organization with so many martial kings is definitely not as simple as you think." Xiaochen smiled and said, "Naturally, I have thought about it. That is why I have to wait for the sky to turn dark. When everyone here dies, there will only be true pain. Only then will this group of people realize that the person they offended is not someone they can afford to offend. That is why they will restrain themselves." Ao Jiao smiled and said, "You are not stupid. There is no need for me to worry. In that case, let's just do it." The sun set in the west, and dusk arrived. The night was as dark as ink. Layers of clouds dyed the sky, and the entire world sank into darkness. Xiaochen, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes and looked at the brightly lit castle. His lips curled up into a faint smile as he dived down. In the courtyard of the Zhang clan in Mo City, the Great Hall was crowded. All the elites of the Zhang clan, Martial Grand Master and above, were gathered here. A few Martial Saint guest elders had arrived as well. No one was absent. The Zhang clan's clan head, Zhang Yan, sat in the middle of the Great Hall. Relying on the rapid development of the past 2 years, the Zhang family, which controlled most of the properties in the city, had roped in many experts. There were more than 10 martial saints and more than 100 martial grand masters. Zhang Yan was an inferior grade martial king. He was considered a peak expert in Mo City. With such a strong strength, no one in Mo City could block him. Even the once glorious Xiao clan could not. As for the previous Tang clan, they had already been reduced to a third-rate clan, unable to even show their face. At this moment, the atmosphere in the hall was somewhat depressing. No one spoke. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement, caution, seriousness, and eagerness. "Patriarch, do you really plan to make a move against the Xiao family tomorrow? Haven't we already agreed to the city lord's mansion's request?" Finally, an elder who was older couldn't help but ask. Zhang Yan said sullenly. Originally, I was prepared to wait for a while longer. However, after what happened in the restaurant during the day, I'm afraid that the situation might change. I cannot wait any longer. However, I heard that the Shao clan's second young master is now a disciple of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Could it be? A young cultivator with small eyes asked worriedly. The moment these words came out, some of the cultivators who had experienced what happened 4 years ago revealed expressions of lingering fear. Zhang Yan's heart tightened as well. 4 years ago, he did not lead a team to kill his way into the Shao clan. He was fortunate enough to survive, resulting in the Zhang clan's glory today. However, the Tang clan's clan head and the Stronglin clan's clan head had died at the same time. Their clans had also declined. However, Zhang Yan quickly calmed down. He smiled and said, "There is no need to be afraid. We now have the sacred heavenly church protecting us. Furthermore, Shao Xiong's son has grown up. Isn't my eldest son as well? He is now a core disciple of the Misty Sword sect. Furthermore, that brat was chased out of the clan by Shao Xiong long ago. What are you all worried about? Now is the best opportunity. While the Shao clan thinks that we will abide by the city lord's agreement, we will deal them a fatal blow, preventing them from rising again. As long as the Shao clan is not destroyed, I will not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Decide. Those who agree to attack tomorrow, raise your hand." Most of the cultivators present did not hesitate to raise their hands. Destroying the Shao clan would be equivalent to obtaining vast resources. To them, there would be many benefits. Naturally, all of them were eager to give it a try. When the few cautious cultivators saw this situation, they could only raise their hands helplessly. Zhang Yan said in satisfaction, "Very good. We will set off tomorrow and wash the Shao clan in blood. From now on, for the sake of secrecy, no one is allowed to leave this great hall." Pu Ci. At this moment, Shao Chen was massacring the sacred heavenly church, which the Zhang clan's clan head regarded as a threat. The sacred heavenly church that the Zhang clan's clan head thought of as the sacred heavenly church died like vegetables in Shao Chen's hands. He did not even bother to draw the lunar shadow saber at his waist. When the gap in strength reached an insurmountable chasm, the advantage of numbers would only be a so-called joke. From the moment Shao Chen landed, the fate of this group of people in the castle was sealed. There was no way for them to survive. Miserable cries resounded. Shao Chen moved through the castle as though there was no one there. No one could stop him, they could not even make him pause for a moment. In the palace at the highest point of the castle, the 5 martial kings with the highest authority had sullen expressions as they looked at the murderous Shao Chen. There was a flight of steps under the 5. Shao Chen casually punched twice, and a surging fist wind swept out. He blasted the last 2 black-clothed cultivators, blocking his way in half. Finally, he arrived at the bottom of the flight of steps. His body slowly floated up as he looked at the 5 people in front. The person in the middle had the highest cultivation, a superior grade martial king. With such cultivation, he could be considered the strongest in Chizi County. However, in Shao Chen's eyes, he was still not strong enough. The black robes that person wore were clearly thicker than those of the people around him. The ancient patterns on his robes were also more complicated, making him look solemn and dignified. "Friend, no matter what the reason is, it is still not too late for you to leave. Let me tell you this clearly. The sacred heavenly church is not something that a peak superior grade martial king can bully." The first martial king from the left said coldly as he looked at Shao Chen. Although he felt fear in his heart, his tone was not overly flustered. Shao Chen said coldly, "Ignorant fool. Did I say that I am a superior grade martial king?" Ka Xie. Shao Chen drew the lunar shadow saber with lightning speed. A dazzling purple light flashed, and an extremely fast saber chi flashed. The person who spoke was chopped in half by the saber chi. His body exploded and turned into a pool of blood. "We misjudged. This person is a half-step martial monarch. Split up and report to headquarters to give up on Cheesy County. The person in the middle had a surprised expression as he quickly retreated. The remaining 3 split up as well, heading in different directions. Originally, the 5 of them thought that Xiao Chen was only a peak superior grade martial king. With the 5 of them working together, they should have been able to kill him. However, they did not expect that after Xiao Chen drew his saber and revealed his strength, he could instantly kill them. The difference was so great that they could not make up for it with numbers or techniques. Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations. Xiao Chen's figure trembled slightly, and he split into 4 clones. Then, he chased after the fleeing black-clothed men. A cool breeze blew, and Xiao Chen hid all his killing intent. Before the 4 pursuers could react, an overwhelming killing intent erupted. Aside from the leader of the group, who managed to dodge the attack at the crucial moment, the other 4 did not have time to react before they were killed. The 5 clones merged together, and the purple light on Xiao Chen's saber became extremely resplendent. Under the huge pressure, the black-clothed man closed his eyes in despair. Roar! Just at this moment, a resonant bird cry resounded in the distance. A golden sword light flew over from afar and blocked Xiao Chen's saber. Bang! The saber and sword clashed, producing a huge energy shockwave. A strong wind blew, sending countless fallen leaves flying. A huge force spread out from the saber. Xiao Chen could not help but take 10 steps back before he could stabilize himself. Xiao Chen was astonished. The other party was actually stronger than him. Although Xiao Chen did not do much, this person who suddenly appeared was already an expert. The person who arrived was also wearing black robes. However, the patterns on the robes were made of gold. This added an ancient and dignified aura to the robes, adding a sense of grandeur to it. The black-robed man with the gold lining wore a mask that covered half his face. He looked very mysterious. Young master, this subordinate is useless. I made an error in judgment. That person is a half-step martial monarch, the superior grade martial king said in horror as he knelt on the ground. The masked man smiled faintly and said, "You can leave first. The Cheesy County's foundation is now useless. Don't come back again." That person felt like he was relieved of a heavy burden and quickly ran into the distance. Suddenly, the silent Xiao Chen said, "I know you, even though you purposely changed your voice. Who are you?" The person under the mask did not deny it. He smiled gently and said, "Honestly speaking, I did not expect that, given your character, you would be in closed-door cultivation instead of preparing for the 5-nation youth competition. I did not expect that you would have the time to come to Mo City." Xiao Chen said coldly, "Hiding your head but showing your tail. Let's see who you are." Boom! Boom! Suddenly, a strong wind blew in the night sky. As Xiao Chen swung his saber, the clouds in the surroundings quickly gathered above Xiao Chen's head. This was the starting stance of the lightning tribulation saber technique: wind and cloud move, wind blows, clouds move, clouds dance with the wind. Dang! The masked man smiled faintly. He did not show any fear when facing the strong Xiao Chen. The golden heavenly rock wings on his back spread out, and a dazzling light turned into a sharp sword chi. When the saber and sword clashed, the two immediately moved back. The two forces were evenly matched, and they each moved back 100 meters. The center of the churning clouds also moved back 100 meters, remaining above Xiao Chen's head. Lightning tribulation saber technique second move, gathering wind and clouds. As the saber danced, the wind and clouds suddenly merged together. The clouds in the surroundings immediately formed a huge whirlpool above Xiao Chen's head. When the masked man saw this mysterious phenomenon, his expression remained calm. He had a carefree smile on his face. Lightning tribulation saber technique, interesting. Let's see how far you have cultivated it. The golden heavenly rock image behind the masked man flashed and appeared under him. Then, it carried him into the air. His speed tripled. Chapter 555. The dazzling sword light instantly arrived at Xiao Chen's face. The heavenly rock below him flapped its wings and blew a strong wind. Xiao Chen's clothes and hair fluttered continuously. When facing this extremely fast sword strike, his saber instantly moved, bringing with it the momentum of wind and clouds to block it. Bang! Violent energy exploded out, and the 1,000 steps beneath their feet exploded, turning into rubble. In the air, the two enormous energies were locked in a stalemate with each other. Under the curtain of the night, they refracted a multicolored brilliance. Xiao Chen quickly spun around in the air, dissipating the force of his saber. His opponent's simple sword strike could only be described as fast. However, when it reached an extreme speed, the force it carried was equal to a peak superior grade Earth-ranked martial technique, perhaps even stronger. Boom! Suddenly, a resounding crack of thunder came from thousands of meters in the sky. Clouds moved in all directions, gathering wind and clouds. The first 3 moves of the lightning tribulation saber technique were finally completed. Clouds gather in all directions, wind and lightning chop. Xiao Chen shouted ferociously. Using the momentum, he executed the 4th move of the lightning tribulation saber technique. The lightning tribulation saber technique had a total of 9 moves. The first 3 moves gathered power, the middle 3 moved lightning, and the final 3 moved descended the tribulation. This was the essence of the lightning tribulation. After Xiao Chen executed it, the mysterious phenomenon became like a real lightning tribulation. It slowly arrived and exploded. With the support of saber intent, this wind and lightning chop brought out its greatest might in Xiao Chen's hands. Wind blew, clouds moved, and thunder roared. Starting with the momentum of wind and clouds, it erupted with the power of lightning. This was the wind and lightning chop. The saber hummed continuously as it burned with a purple lightning fire. Under the illumination of the lightning in the night sky, Xiao Chen's handsome face appeared very serious and dignified in his white robes. The black-clad man smiled faintly. His expression under the mask was still very calm. He commented softly, "Not bad. Wind in front, gathering power with clouds, and lightning as a spear. You have grasped all the essentials of this move. Unfortunately, your understanding of the state of wind is still lacking. That is not how the wind blows." The masked man's gaze was as sharp as a sword. With one glance, he could see through the true state of this attack. The golden light behind him became increasingly dazzling. The intense state of light made the dark night even more dazzling than day. Xiao! The masked man held the long sword in his hand and thrust it forward. The boundless golden light behind him gathered at one point in an instant. The night, which was as bright as day just a moment ago, instantly darkened. Under the night sky, only the tip of the sword shone with boundless brilliance. The golden heavenly rock spread its wings and let out a shrill cry. Immediately, a violent storm arose, and the golden light directly shot out from the tip of the sword. Along with this gale, it rushed towards Xiao Chen. As the light flickered, the powerful force caused the surrounding space to wrinkle. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. The golden celestial Pang's final gale had actually suppressed his great gale. As the wind was suppressed, the clouds above immediately showed signs of dissipating. As the wind and clouds dissipated, the might of the lightning on the blade immediately decreased by 20%. Boom! When the golden light struck the blade, the state of light burst forth. The dark night was illuminated by the golden light once again. Xiao Chen's body shot back like an arrow. His internal organs trembled slightly, and his qi and blood surged. Blood leaked out of the corner of his lips. The masked man stood upright while holding his sword. Sword intent circled around the blade, causing the sword to hum. He smiled faintly and said, "Don't try to execute this saber technique in front of me. You just learned it. The lightning tribulation saber technique is not meant for you to play around with." Xiao Chen's expression remained calm, there were not many fluctuations in his heart. He said indifferently, "That might not necessarily be the case. As long as there is wind, the clouds will not scatter. As long as the wind and clouds do not scatter, the momentum will not be extinguished. Right after Xiao Chen spoke, the strong wind that the golden heavenly rock blew actually started circling around him under Xiao Chen's control. The clouds above gathered again, and Xiao Chen's aura rose rapidly. He directly executed the fifth move of the lightning tribulation saber technique, falling lightning chop. Xiao Chen did not use any fancy moves with this attack. He directly used the might of heavenly lightning to descend from the sky and hack at the masked man. Bang! The masked man was somewhat astonished. Clearly, he had not expected Xiao Chen to react so quickly. Xiao Chen actually thought of using his opponent's wind to gather momentum again. Dang! In the time it took for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen quickly swung his sword. The saber and sword clashed, and sparks flew everywhere. A vast electric energy exploded. This attack forced the masked man back several hundred meters. Cracks appeared on the golden heavenly rock behind him, looking like it would explode at any moment. Interesting. The masked man smiled faintly and waved his hand. The golden heavenly rock behind him split apart and turned into 9 beams of light descending from the sky, encasing his body. Dang! Xiao Chen did not give the masked man any time to react. He leaped up and executed the lightning tribulation saber technique with the momentum of wind and lightning, charging over again. Dang! 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 After the masked man scattered the golden heavenly rock, he seemed to have become even stronger. Under the encirclement of the 9 beams of light, he remained rooted to the ground, not moving at all. The masked man's sword gave off a bright light as it danced about. The masked man's defense was impenetrable, blocking Xiao Chen's attacks over and over again. Bathed in the light, he looked holy and solemn. When the saber intent and sword intent clashed intensely, the shock waves swept out. The vast fortress on the mountain peak rustled and crumbled. Earthly lightning tribulation. When the masked man's aura reached its peak and the thunderclouds above finally surged, Xiao Chen shouted and executed the final 3 moves of the lightning tribulation saber technique. All the lightning attributed spiritual energy in the soil of the entire heavenly jade mountain gathered on Xiao Chen's saber, resonating with the thunderclouds in the sky. This saber strike connected heaven and earth, turning the lightning of the earth into a boundless great tribulation that surged out. Bang! Aside from the area 1 meter around the masked man, the rest of the ground under his feet exploded, creating a deep, ring-shaped pit. Under the illumination of the lightning, countless pieces of soil were wrapped in electric arcs, floating in midair. Heavenly lightning tribulation. Xiao Chen's expression did not change as he executed the 8th move of the lightning tribulation saber technique. At this moment, all the lightning-attributed spiritual energy in the sky turned into 9 bolts of heavenly lightning that descended and gathered on the saber. The 9 bolts of purple lightning were like ferocious flood dragons, tearing the night sky apart like a piece of black cloth. The entire space shattered under this saber strike. The golden light around the masked man turned into solid golden sand dancing up and down. His feet did not move at all as he forcefully received this saber strike. Boom! The ring-shaped pit around the masked man quickly enlarged and deepened. Soon, the entire mountain peak was blasted apart by this saber strike. When the electric light shot out, the rocks that flew up were all reduced to dust. As the dust settled, a stone pillar more than a kilometer tall appeared under the masked man's feet. The surrounding mountains, trees, forests, and ancient castles all turned to dust. Enough. Seeing that Xiao Chen was going to execute the final move of the lightning tribulation saber technique, the masked man finally moved. He casually swung his sword, and the light filling the air turned solid. Then, it turned into a heavenly sword and shot towards the surging thunderclouds above Xiao Chen's head. The world is filled with righteousness. To people, it is called righteousness. Above are the stars, below are the mountains and rivers. With the bright world, how can one fear fiendish demons? Suddenly, a resonant song resounded in the mountain forest. It was like 10,000 people singing in unison. The entire world seemed to tremble. Righteousness art. This is the orthodox sword technique of the Tianwu dynasty. How does this fellow know it? Xiaochen thought in astonishment. The light of the heavenly sword became increasingly dazzling as the song resounded. In the end, it could no longer be seen with the naked eye. With a so, it scattered the boundless thunderclouds in the sky. When the thunderclouds scattered, the strongest move of the lightning tribulation saber technique, the divine lightning tribulation, was naturally destroyed. Xiaochen's complexion paled slightly. He calmly calculated the situation. Although he still had the stronger four-season saber technique, he had not used it yet. But even if he used it, he guessed that he only had a 50% chance of winning against this mysterious black-clothed man. It was obvious that the other party still had a trump card that he hadn't used. The masked man smiled and said, "Do you still want to stop me? Go back and make your preparations. With your current strength, it will be hard for you to rank within the top 10 of the 5-nation youth competition." Watching him disappear from sight, Xiaochen asked Ao Jiao in his mind, "Those ancient patterns on his clothes, do you recognize them?" Ao Jiao thought for a while and said, "That is the attire of the Tianwu dynasty's remnant clan. Those patterns are actually the words of the royal clan. They are just redrawn using a kind of artistic method." As he expected, Xiaochen closed his eyes. After thinking for a long time, he opened his eyes again and said, "I know who he is. The attire of the Tianwu dynasty's remnant races, the strong state of light, the surging sword intent, and the perpetually indifferent temperament. Who else could it be but that person?" However, Xiaochen had not expected that after not meeting him for more than a year, this person's strength had grown so much. Ao Jiao said sullenly, "This person is very powerful. The final luck of the Tianwu dynasty rests on him. His future accomplishments are immeasurable. He is a great enemy of yours." Xiaochen said calmly, "There is no need to care about him. Let's go." "Go where?" "After killing the big fish, it is time to make a move on you." Xiaochen summoned out the scarlet throne and sat on it with his eyes closed. He recovered his exhausted essence and silently flew towards Mo City on a scarlet cloud in the night sky. Only a lonely stone pillar remained on the tallest and largest peak of the Hotian Jade Mountain where Xiaochen was. Dust churned around it, lingering for a long time. 4 hours later, before the sky had even brightened, that scarlet cloud appeared a kilometer above Mo City. Xiaochen opened his eyes, and all his fatigue was swept away. A bright light flickered in his eyes before he withdrew it and calmed down. He got up and walked to the edge of the scarlet cloud. Xiaochen lowered his head and looked around. His gaze stopped at the imposing Zhang clan's courtyard. "Xiao!" The scarlet throne turned into a beam of scarlet light and returned to Xiaochen's forehead. Then, Xiaochen gently floated down. In the dark night, he stood silently on the walls of the Zhang clan's courtyard like a ghost. When he saw a group of patrolling cultivators, he flicked his finger and sent out 2 purple flames. With a flick of his finger, 2 purple flames shot out like arrows. A bloody hole appeared on the foreheads of a few cultivators. They did not even have time to say a word before they quietly fell to the ground. Xiaochen extended out his spiritual sense and soon discovered the strangeness of the Great Hall. 100 elite martial grand masters, 10 odd martial saints, and the Zhang clan's clan head were all gathered here. Some of them were sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed, some were chatting and smiling, and some were drinking tea. The atmosphere in the brightly lit Great Hall was very strange. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.